never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
Is that legal on this?
I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Find out.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live here on a Monday morning, going head-to-head with Good Morning Football, as always, on our Monday morning, Sam. You know, you can have us both on. Same, two screens here. But it's time to review all of the Week 9 NFL action.
They're in Germany all week.
They're in Germany.
We're not in Germany.
Oh, so it's like mid-afternoon over there for them.
Sure. Yeah.
Whatever it is. What's the time change there? 6 hours?
6 hours, maybe 7
hours?
depending on where they are. I'm not.
They're in Germany,
sure.
not just on vacation. They're getting ready for Seahawks and Bucks. First game in Germany this week. So let's go through it, man. As always, every Monday morning, going through all of the previous day's action. I guess we'll rewind, because you seem to remind me, to Thursday Night Football. Because everybody wants to hear our thoughts on the Eagles' 29-17 victory over the Houston Texans.
Yes. I mean, my only real thought was being annoyed that they didn't cover, despite getting really close.
Yeah.
But the Texans.
That's me for like every game on Sunday.
Another not a good week for either of us.
Yeah.
More so me than you for this time. I think because of the push for Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, I only had 3 wins, which is one less than you with 4. So
I don't want to talk about it.
Both bad. No, the Texans did what they've done pretty much all season, which is they make it difficult for you, but ultimately the Eagles are just a much better team. And, the longer the game goes, the more that's going to tell, and they did.
A feisty cover. Damian Pierce got to run through the defense. Man, he was fantastic again.
He's so good.
He's so good. And it might be, and he's a running back in the whole thing, but, it might be a little bit of a foundation for the Texans to build upon, because you saw the other night, outside of a big play or two by Philip Dorsett, not much happening with that passing attack.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out they had nobody.
They had nobody. They had absolutely nobody.
Look at the list of players that had a target in this game. Yeah. Philip Dorsett led the team. Chris Moore, O.J. Howard. This is Brex Burkhead, some guy who sounds like a Portuguese soccer player, scored a touchdown for them. Quitoriano. Yeah, that's not a football player. That's a guy that plays, for Benfica. And just bagged a hat trick in the Champions League. That's not...
No stone left unturned in the Texans scouting here.
But that's who the Texans were passing to in this game. So, yeah, look, did Davis Mills look great? No. On the other hand, who's he throwing to? This is the same thing we're saying about Aaron Rodgers and, players like that.
It's true.
Of course, Davis Mills is not going to look good when that's his receiving core.
Of course, Houston got revenge in the World Series. What did you predict? Houston in 7?
No, the Phillies in 7. We didn't even make it to 7. Sadly.
No, Houston in 6, including the combined no-hitter.
Which I heard somebody was saying isn't really a thing.
Of course it is.
I mean, I heard people very dismissive of that as a thing to say.
Yeah, there's no pitcher, because they keep the records by pitcher usually. So the pitcher doesn't go into the record books as the guy who had the no-hitter. They changed those rules years ago. There was a guy that had a 5-inning rain-shortened no-hitter. They said, no, that doesn't count. And there was a guy who lost a game while throwing a no-hitter. He only threw 8 innings, but he walked so many guys, and there were errors, so he lost the game. So, it might not go in the record books as no-hitter for a pitcher, but the team gave up no hits. It was good.
By the way,
Houston got revenge in the World Series.
Email us in suggestions for the next charity and for the next charity sort of event thing that we're going to do. A couple of people have suggested, and I agree with this, that, since I had to do the last thing, it's kind of your turn, right? And since I've had to do sports that I've never played twice now, again, kind of your turn. So it feels like we should see what sport you've never played that you can do.
Like pickleball or something?
I was thinking more, rugby is the obvious one, right? We could find a rugby set of challenges for you to do and see how that works out. It feels like fun for everybody.
It might be.
Yeah.
Have to be a good charity. Better be a good charity that we're finding here.
Email us in suggestions, NFLpodcasts@pff.com.
All right, just to wrap up Thursday Night Football, bottom line is Eagles take care of business. They moved to 8-0, once again showing they're just solid all around. Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown leading the way through the air. They also ran for their 143. And Jalen Hurts making big throws when needed.
First time, by the way, that the Texans pass rush showed up. We'd been kind of lamenting the fact that this group hadn't really shown anything this season, despite having some players that have that potential. Jerry Hughes had a big game, 7 pressures, gave Jordan Mailata all kinds of problems. Nick Sirianni, the coach, was kind of taking personal responsibility for those plays. Like, the protection and the plays weren't on the same. It's like, that doesn't really explain why Mailata just got whooped. Get one of them, I think he was looking for something different, and it was like a mental breakdown as opposed to just getting screwed by Jerry Hughes. But he got beat by Jerry Hughes a few times in that game in a way that Jerry Hughes hasn't really done much this season. But for the first time, really this year, Houston's pass rush actually showed up and caused some problems.
Yeah, problems in the way of losing 29-17 to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles' undefeated talk has started.
You look at their schedule, it isn't easy to find losses on it. I will say that. They have a very favorable schedule. And,
yeah.
Okay.
The problem is what you saw. Like, we just watched the NFL yesterday,
yes.
right? Like, you don't know.
That's the thing. It's not going to be a game where they're not favored, where they lose. It's going to be a game against some random team that just shows up that week.
They do have to play the Cowboys again, this time presumably not with Cooper Rush.
Right.
Though.
That's the one obvious one where it's like, okay, that could be tough. But, look at their run. It's Washington, it's Indianapolis, it's Green Bay, it's Tennessee. Okay, they look, like they'll give most teams a game. At New York, Giants. At Chicago, okay, those 2 games are tougher than they looked early in the season. At Dallas, that's the obvious one. And then New Orleans and the Giants again. They will be favored in every single one of those games, but such is the nature of the NFL, one of those will be the game that... Also, by the way, depending on how many wins they get in a row, they're not going to be playing for anything at the end of the season. They have to want the record to, get it. Week 18 against the Giants... Are you going to play everybody if you're already 17-0 or 16-0?
We're really getting ahead of ourselves here.
Sure, but
But yeah, if you clinch early, which could happen, although the Vikings are sitting there, the Vikings are only 1 game behind them now.
Sure.
7-1. Well, kind of. Game and a half. Game. Anyway, Eagles 29-17.
Yes.
Over the Texans.
Thursday night. No.
All right, let's go to the 1 o'clock games yesterday. Let's start with Miami. Dolphins 35, Bears 32. An absolute shootout between Tua and Justin Fields. Fields picking up 178 yards on the ground, an NFL record for quarterbacks. While Tua continues to find Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Tyreek goes for 143 and a score again. Jalen Waddle 85 and a score, and the Dolphins offense continues to create oceans of space with those receivers. They are absolutely fantastic, and Tua doing his thing, man. He came out looking like a distributor, right? Like a guy that was going to get the ball to playmakers if you had him, and now they have him, and the Dolphins are doing it.
Yeah, this offense is fascinating because the rest of the league is working through this backlash from NFL defenses of actually being able to stop what's going on, and everybody else is kind of grinding out points and struggling for drives and having problems. And Miami appears to have literally, it's like a video game where you've just put on a cheat code, right? We're going to play this game and insert code that just puts all wide receivers open at all times. And that's what Tua's dealing with. So when we mentioned this on the NFL Daily, that we talked about what a leap it is to go from Alabama open to the NFL, where the picture is just different. You drop back, you look up, you look at your first read, and at Alabama, he's 5 yards wide open, right? It's an easy read. You don't have to deal with anything else. Just put the ball in his general vicinity, and he's got so much space. It's a wide open completion. And then you get to the NFL, and the margins are much different. Like, the picture you're looking at is completely different. He looks like he's covered, even when he isn't. Tua's back to Alabama open. Every time he drops back, whether it's Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, there's nobody anywhere near those guys. So he's just pitch and catch all day long. And then even when he's inaccurate, and I use sort of, ball location inaccurate. Like, It's catchable, but it's 2 yards underthrown, or it's not exactly where it should be. They've got A, so much margin for error because of the separation, but B, guys like Tyreek Hill in particular are so good at the catch point. So he's got a bigger margin for error with his throws than any other quarterback in the NFL, in addition to having more wide open receivers than any other quarterback in the NFL. It is insane what this offense is doing right now.
The complaint early in the season that we had that was legit was late in the fourth. It always seemed like it was late in the fourth quarter, but we're just a few weeks removed from him throwing the ball to Pittsburgh's defense a legitimate 3 times, but 4 dropped interceptions on Sunday Night Football. And even though the offense kept moving the ball well, they would stall out, and there were some bad decisions in there. Tua has done a much better job of taking care of the ball in recent weeks here. So he's still finding open receivers, throwing the ball accurately, but these last 2 games, much cleaner brand of football here. One was against, it was against the Lions 2 weeks ago, but hey, look, they stepped up against the Packers today. It was against yesterday. It was against the Bears, but this is what you're paid to do, right? Dominate these teams that you're supposed to. At least the Dolphins offense versus the Lions and the Bears defense, they should have success, and Tua's doing a good job there. So hitting some downfield throws were needed. I thought he did a nice job. Him and Waddle, the connection where he was rolling out. Waddle did a great job coming back for the ball, because Tua kind of threw it. It almost looked like at the safety, and Waddle went and got it. I mean, the fine line in the NFL, we see this a lot. The fine line in the NFL, receivers have to work back to the ball. And when they don't, they hang their quarterback out to dry. And you don't see it all the time. Like, you don't notice that. But Tua rolls out. He throws it basically to the safety. Waddle has to cut his route to go get the ball. It was just awesome, man. But the Dolphins just look faster than everybody. And they are. And they're creating big plays.
Yeah, there's a big difference at the NFL level between receivers that are prepared to go and find the football and those that are just going to let the ball come to them. So you can be wide open on a deep shot, and because you're 2 steps behind the DB, you're just going to you're going to wait for it to drop over your shoulder. Like, that's the catch you want to make because that's natural. But actually, if that ball isn't perfect, 2 yards of separation evaporates in a heartbeat, particularly, when you think about the wingspan and the athleticism of NFL defensive backs. Those guys have a pretty large radius of being able to break up a pass. So even if they're 2 yards in your wake, if that ball isn't perfect, they can get up and deflect it away before it drops into the bucket that you're creating for it. So you need to go and high point that thing. Like, that's why that's such a thing that people harp on about. You need to go and high point the football, because if you don't, that guy will break it up. And you just going to high point that thing gets in the DB's way and doesn't let him, elevate and make the pass break up. And there's so many plays in a given weekend where you see, I think, an incompletion happen that doesn't happen if a receiver attacks the football. And that's a big part of when, you look at why is Aaron Rodgers struggling or quarterbacks like that. It's because those receivers, they're waiting on the ball. They're not going to get it. And that's a big difference between, what Rodgers is dealing with right now and what Tua is dealing with. Tua can put the ball in the air knowing that both those guys will go and get it.
All right, a couple key plays here I want to highlight. With 7:55 left in the game. So the game is 35-32. Dolphins win by 3. A key 4th and 1 with just under 8 minutes left in the game. The Dolphins go for it. Tua and Durham Smythe not really on the same page. Tua just underthrows it, but announcers were talking about maybe they were slightly not on the same page.
I mean, that
but
felt a lot like
the controversy there, of course, is take the points versus going for it. Had the Dolphins could have kicked the field goal to go up 6. Instead, they were going for a touchdown, right? A touchdown essentially ends that game. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're being aggressive. Kind of kept the Bears in the game. Any thoughts on that? And then later, Tua underthrows a deep ball that would have ended it, right? These are the ones that go to social media and it's like, Tua's arm strength is an issue. And It's okay for that to be the case. I don't think underthrown deep balls are really an arm strength issue necessarily. I think it's an accuracy issue. It's not like Tua can't throw the ball far enough, but he does underthrow the deep ball is the thing.
So it's not. I don't think the deep ball generally is not a good measure of arm strength. Like that's usually not where.
Unless you're like Ryan Fitzpatrick put his whole body into it to get it 45 yards. Sometimes
Ryan Fitzpatrick just put his whole body into every throw.
Yeah, that's true.
But throwing the deep ball is generally more of a timing thing than it is just an arm strength thing. But what it does do, it's like, we had this conversation. We always have this conversation at draft time, like the balance between accuracy and arm strength. And what arm strength does is buy you a little bit of time to be able to be later on a throw. Like Cam Newton, this was one of the things this was how he played, is his arm strength bought him extra time to be able to be late on a throw and still get it there, in a way that doesn't exist for quarterbacks with noodles, because you can't get it there in that length of time. So Tua's problem is not that he can't get the ball 50 yards downfield, it's that his arm can't get it there if he's late on that throw. So if he's going to make that deep ball, he's got to put it in the air with enough time to get it there, otherwise it will be underthrown. And at the moment, he's late on too many of those throws, and they are a couple of yards underthrown, and he's being bailed out a few times by the fact that Tyreek Hill will still go up and moss somebody at the catch point and turn an underthrown deep ball into a good play anyway. There were a few plays in this game where, his arm, he missed throws, or his arm was a problem. That one to Smythe, I think he just missed. There was another one where he kind of got out of some trouble and then tried to fire it back across the field a little bit, and again, just underthrew it. I think it's an inherent part of his game, but who cares? Like, he's able to play like this, put up a ton of points, play a game that's going to wind up with an incredible PFF grade. He's going to take advantage of the Alabama open wide receivers in this offense, and clearly the Dolphins and Tua are good enough to be contenders in the current state of affairs, which is to say, with his arm as it currently is and the offense as it currently is, that's more than good enough, right? But it doesn't mean you just sort of ignore that the arm is a thing. Like, you can't say just because Miami's cooking and everything's looking amazing that Tua, Mahomes, and Allen, there's no difference. It's all the same. Well, come on now. let's sort of look at reality here. Like, you've got two guys who can make any throw in the book and are never at fault for arm strength, and one guy who is. But, the results may end up similar, but these are not like-for-like things we're talking about here.
We're still in a spot where Tua and Hurts, the two guys who got A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill, their offense is absolutely cooking right now.
Yeah, and then every now and again you see a quarter of Derek Carr and
a quarter of Derek
Adams where it looks the same.
Real quick, because we're already off pace, but
perfect.
Justin Fields, unbelievable as a runner. Still only averaged 4.4 yards per attempt. Did throw 3 touchdowns, but overall, passing inconsistency remains, but them tapping into his rushing ability, both designed and as a scrambler, has absolutely changed this offense.
This was also, by the way, the best passing performance we've ever seen from Justin Fields. Like, okay, he only had like 125 yards or whatever. He had like 50 more rushing yards than he had passing yards, which is weird. But
like the touchdown to Darnell Mooney and everything, just fantastic.
Like, this was, I think, the most assured and kind of comfortable, in control passing performance we've seen from Justin Fields. And we're now, 3 straight weeks where this offense has looked different than it looked previously, which is helping Fields. And Chase Claypool, you can see that he might make a difference to this offense. He's capable of doing some things. I know he didn't put up particularly impressive numbers or anything, but it's an extra target that he actually is worth throwing to. So I am reasonably encouraged by what we're seeing from Chicago. The fact that offense has functioned now multiple weeks in a row against some pretty legit defenses, they'll be an intriguing team going forward.
All right, so Miami moves to 6-3. The entire AFC East, we'll get to all of them. The AFC East is all over 500.
And all of a sudden, that division's not done. Like, Buffalo are supposed to run and hide, and everyone else is playing for second. Miami is not out of that division race yet. All
right, we'll get to Jets Bills right now in a second. But first, today's podcast is presented by our newest sponsor. It's Viore. Beautiful clothing here, Sam. You didn't wear it. You didn't know it was Viore Monday.
I need some kind of heads up when this is happening. I have multiple pieces of Vuori clothing, but I don't. I need timing. I need to be informed when the read is happening so that I can wear them for the podcast.
You have the same document that I have,
rather than my Buffalo versus PFF.
Oh, we're going to get to Buffalo versus PFF, but Vuori's fantastic. By the way, two of my best friends are all in on Team Vuori, so they're avid podcast listeners, and you should be all in too because of the versatility, the comfort. They're designed to look great in everyday life, in and outside the gym, perfect for any workout or activity. And it's easy to find the product that you want on their website, so get over there right now. It's vuori.com/PFF. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. And for our listeners, they're offering 20% off your first purchase. You get some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at vuori.com/PFF. That's VUORI.com/PFF. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 plus free returns. Go to vuori.com/PFF and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing. All right, Buffalo versus PFF. Let's do it. It was really Jets versus Buffalo. Jets 20, Bills 17. Jets moved to 6-3, just a half game behind the juggernaut Buffalo Bills. What are your initial thoughts on this game?
So for the third time this season, Josh Allen was very careless with the football. And this is something that hadn't been like a feature of his game for a while, like dating back to bad Josh Allen. Once he became good, he'd really been pretty careful with the ball and hadn't put it in harm's way and didn't make really bad mistakes. Like every now and again, I mean, it's not like he doesn't turn over the football, but he's ramped up the frequency of like, what the hell was that plays over the last few weeks. And you can't do that much. Like as much as the Bills, I think, are still the best team in football generally, in abstract terms. But the margins at this level are so fine that you can't, regardless of the disparity between you and the opposition, you can't pitch the ball to the defense multiple times in the game and expect that not to change the outcome. So on the one hand, you had Josh Allen pitching the ball to the Jets defense multiple times. And on the other side, what looked like the biggest concern, i.e. Zach Wilson and that Buffalo pass rush creating those kinds of problems, didn't happen, didn't manifest because the Jets ended up going into this game with a really concerted game plan to minimize that.
I have some numbers for that too.
Okay, Buffalo has the best pass rush in the NFL. They're number 2, I think, in pressure rate with the lowest blitz rate in the NFL. They have the best pass rush, the best front four in the league. Our offensive line is in ribbons. Zach Wilson is the worst quarterback in the league under pressure. This has disaster written all over it. So the Jets went, okay, sure, you are not going to take more than 2.5 seconds to throw any pass. Get it out of your hands immediately. And his average time to throw was 2.3 something seconds when his average time to throw this season is over 3. Like
by far the quickest of his entire career.
Yeah. So he went from one of the slowest average time throws in the league to just get it out immediately and make sure that pass rush does not cause problems.
So how did they do that? Well, Zach Wilson dropped back just 28 times. That's it. They had 6 screens and 5 RPOs, run pass options, which again are just run plays where the quarterback can pull it and throw. So 11 of his 28 dropbacks were screens or RPOs. All of those plays essentially take the pass rush out of it, right? Because screens, you're inviting the pass rush. RPO, they're playing the run, basically. So you only had 17 other dropback passes. There's a few more play actions in there. There was quick game. I think Jets fans are real excited about Zach Wilson, including one in our chat right here who's reminding us that he's 5-0 this year, or 5-1 or whatever it is. And we appreciate you, everyone in the chat. Hit that thumbs up button while you're in there. Say what you want. I mean, Zach Wilson didn't tear it up yesterday, but what he did have was a couple key runs, right? Key conversions with his legs. He didn't do what he did the previous week against New England, where he just scrambled to the sideline and threw the ball away almost every single time. And then it's one play, but like 3rd and 5, just before the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, just a perfect slant. I mean, I think we're going to look back at the Zach Wilson era. So far in the Zach Wilson era, this 3rd and 5 slants might be the throw of his career.
Perfect
It's
slant.
a 3rd and 5 slant. But given the circumstances, the crunch time against the Bills, it was a perfect slant. It was a perfect slant. So Wilson made plays when they needed. I'm not saying they won because of him or anything like
That's
that.
a pretty low bar.
I know it's a low bar. All I'm saying is I'm impressed with his ability to not scramble around completely lost like he had been in recent weeks, executing the simple game plan. And yeah, the game-winning touchdown was a screen, right? It was a screen. Screen to Michael Carter. The Jets they've done a nice job getting the ball into their running back's hands. It was a good game plan, well executed by the Jets.
Yeah, look, I think if we're focusing on Zach Wilson coming out of this game, we're just looking at the wrong thing.
I'm not high level saying, hey, Zach, but like he made key plays down the stretch in this game.
But the story of this
whereas
game,
the MVP quarterback didn't.
Right. But the story of this game is, well, number one, the MVP candidate quarterback had a game that was worse than Zach Wilson. Like, that's headline number one, is that the great quarterback played like crap, right? Headline number two is that the Jets found a way for their not great quarterback to not be a problem. Like, Zach Wilson was under pressure, 5 dropbacks in this game. That, against the best pass rush in the NFL, that is a far bigger statement than the fact that he simply didn't screw it up. Even in those 5 dropbacks, he found a way to have a turnover-worthy play with a fumble in there, right? Like, it's not like Zach Wilson was perfect.
Yeah, he had a bad fumble on a Von Miller sack.
And that was a classic Zach Miller play, right? It's a, pressure, let's run out into the flat, and, I've been sacked from behind.
Zach Wilson, yeah.
It's a turnover, right? Like, these are – so they simply found a way for those plays not to exist in this game, which is a coaching success. So, which is a story of the Jets season. They have been a very well-coached team, which continues. So – incredible credit to Robert Saleh and that coaching team, both sides of the ball, came in with really good game plans. I just don't think that Zach Wilson is a feature to focus on coming out of this game. It's every other part of the Jets team.
Yeah.
Offense, defense, and coaching was fantastic in this game. Their pass rush is really good. Why are people still testing Sauce Gardner deep? Like, stop throwing the ball at him. That being said, that was a lot of contact in that last play, but whatever. Sauce Gardner looks fantastic.
That was hand fighting.
Stop it.
That was hand fighting.
Hand fighting isn't a thing except just a term people throw at to explain contact. Like, it's not.
They were fighting with their hands.
Yeah.
Making contact.
So anyway, Jets defense was really good again. But those are the 2 big storylines out of this game for me. Number one, the Jets did a fantastic coaching job. And number 2, for the 3rd game this season, Josh Allen has just been way too careless with the ball.
So you're saying it's the 3rd game. I think really, though, this is 6 straight quarters of careless football from Josh Allen. The second half against Green Bay, where he put the ball in harm's way after they dominated in the first half. Mm-hmm. Second half against Green Bay on Sunday Night Football, carried over into this week. Their very first drive. I mean, we're not even a minute into the game. Josh Allen's rolling out into the flat. I don't know what he's seeing here.
No.
He throws the ball right to the defense on the very first drive for an interception. There's a strip sack in there, a little bit tough. That was, a pass rush issue coming off a play action protection. And then the other interception, look, Sauce is fantastic and everything. Allen threw the ball right to him again, right? Threw the ball right to him. Initially, I thought, hey, it's pretty good disguise. It wasn't really even disguised.
No,
Sauce did a great job. Well, not even a great job. Just kind of redirects the
just sinks
receiver.
Into space and grabs. Like,
sinks into cover 2.
It looked classic. Like, that's the kind of play that rookie quarterbacks make in the NFL because they don't see cover 2 in college, right? It's like Jared Goff had one of these. It's like, what? This is what I'm saying. Josh Allen went from doesn't really make bad mistakes at all. Like, whatever he's doing, it's the right thing, and every now and again there'll be a mistake or whatever. But it's all of a sudden, the last few weeks, we've seen these plays where it's like, what are you doing? Like, this is bad Josh Allen again. This is what you were doing years 1 and 2 when you were playing badly and we couldn't work out if you would ever become good. It was obviously the physical talent was there. You could make every throw, but you can't make throws like this. He hasn't been making these for the last couple of years. And then multiple games this year, they have shown up. And these are fairly inexplicable.
These are bad. I mean, there's another
boneheaded type
one
decisions.
in the fourth quarter that got dropped in a tie game, right? You're sitting there at 17-17, trying to lead the comeback, and he throws it right to the defense, gets dropped. So this is, the people that complain about, are we really evaluating almost interceptions? Yes, because almost interceptions become future interceptions. They're predictive. And that's what we saw here. Allen had gotten away with some. I mean, he's gotten away with stuff throughout, even when he was playing great.
Well,
but these are coming in bunches. And like you're saying, there's a difference between Josh Allen's really aggressive and trying to make tight window throws. These are blatant misreads of coverage that he's making right now. This isn't like, he's just trusting his arm too much. He's not seeing it on some of these plays.
The first game Allen had with a bunch of almost turnovers, he had 6 turnover-worthy plays in that game against Miami where they lost, right?
Yeah.
0 interceptions. So if you were like, almost plays don't matter, ignore them. Well, okay, but the next time he had multiple turnover-worthy plays was that game against Green Bay, which resulted in 2 interceptions. The next time was this week where he had multiple turnovers. So they tend to matter. Like if you're almost turning the ball over a lot, eventually you're going to actually turn over the ball a lot because, you can only throw the ball at defenders so many times before they start catching them.
I misspoke earlier. It was James Robinson on the game-winning touchdown on the screen. I apologize. But Michael Carter, the running back, really nice game for him. They got Robinson involved a little bit. I mentioned Wilson with his legs. The Jets did a good enough job there getting those running backs involved and moving the ball.
Other than the play where Garrett Wilson just decided to throw it away whilst running, he looked really good.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, there's a couple plays like release off the line on a seam route. He had the one-handed catch out of bounds.
Wilson, after that, I don't understand how the same hand makes those 2 plays. Just running like that, the ball just pops out of his hand, and then
that wasn't exactly though. He was pump faking. He thought he was going to throw it,
but he pump faked it a couple of times, and then it just came out. But that just lost the handle of the ball whilst running, and then either the very next play or 2 plays later, he catches that ball, just stabs it out of the air one-handed in the end zone, and can't come down in bounds. How does the same hand make those 2 plays?
It's a good question.
It is. Wilson
ends up with a modest, it's a good stat line, 8 catches for 92, but he looks special.
Yes.
I think Wilson, first-round pick, him and Sauce Gardner, their top 2 first-round picks, both look
He had a really nice
special
play early in the game where he just caught a simple out route and then immediately swipes Kyrie Elam to the floor. Matador's the man. Elam's lying on the turf and Garrett Wilson is getting first down yardage. He's just so good.
Jets solid pass rush once again, getting to Josh Allen. Sheldon Rankins had a strip sack in there. So just a good all-around effort from the Jets, taking it to the Bills and making things really interesting in the AFC East.
Broken sky cam in this game.
And there was a broken sky cam.
Full delay because the sky cam, a cable fell off or something.
Moving fans and everything.
Yeah,
we'll get into, maybe on the Wednesday show, we'll talk about the sky cam delay for 10 minutes.
Absolutely. Diggs got sauce right at the start of the game with one nice. It was literally first play, right? I think.
Yeah, 42 yards right behind him.
Yeah, so that was obviously one of the
challenge him deep if you get him on a little double move early. That's when you do it.
Yeah, at least not when it's man, single one-on-one coverage, press man the whole way. Don't test him on those plays.
Yeah, Sauce isn't going to end up with a 90 or anything, so don't complain.
Yeah,
he did get beat for a 42-yarder. Had the interception, had the late. Call it a pass breakup. He was at least at the catch point.
Mm-hmm.
But and he's awesome. Sauce Gardner's awesome.
Yeah. Look, he looks like one of the best corners in the NFL already.
Very impressive. All right, let's wrap up the AFC East just because we have to. New England Patriots 26.
Just because
the Colts 3. And I'm big on not overreacting on a Monday morning.
Okay.
I'm big on that. I like to take in all the information and not jump it, not go through the same issues that other people go through and overreact.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't know that Sam Ehlinger is the answer for the Colts.
Feels hasty.
Finishes with 103 gross passing yards. That's the official
gross
term.
As in, not net, or as in disgusting?
It's called a double entendre, Sam. It's both.
I get it.
As in not net, and this game was disgusting.
Gotcha.
But then you take off 60 for the 9 sacks.
It's quite a lot
of Ehlinger. It was ugly, man.
Well, yeah. Look, I mean, the Colts' offensive line apparently still stinks, so that's a problem.
And the idea that, you just put a more mobile quarterback back there.
Yeah.
That's not how things work.
No. So, look, from a Jim Irsay / Colts point of view, I get it. Like, Matt Ryan behind this offensive line is just a hiding to nothing all season long. He's going to get killed. It's going to be ugly. It's bad. I get trying to see if Ellinger will do better because, he's mobile. He can get out of some trouble. He can make some plays despite the pressure. But he's also a lot worse than Matt Ryan. So what you gain in the mobility and the potential to make a play on the move, you probably lose by the fact that he's a bad quarterback and not, a borderline Hall of Famer for his career, albeit one who's at the end and declining and whatever. But,
But you get the move. Like, I get the move.
Yes,
too.
I do get the move, but I think it's fairly obvious that it's not a fix. Like, Sam Ellinger is not a good quarterback, has never really been a good quarterback, and the chances of him, elevating what is a pretty bad team is fairly minimal.
Josh Uche getting to the quarterback a ton. I mean, it was just a dominant effort by the Patriots. All that said, it's early in the game when it was still close. One of the key plays, Jonathan Jones with a blocked punt. Do you see the blocked punt? It was really a sneaky play. Comes in from vice, sneaks in, attacked the Colts protection, timed it up perfectly. They blocked the punt. Dominant. This is one of my few predictions, right? Dominant, old school type of Patriots win, where they just pretty much from start to finish, the defense, special teams. All that said, Mac Jones on the other side still looks terrible.
Yeah,
and I think
awful.
And the Patriots are 2-0 the last 2 weeks,
which has to be the only reason this isn't one of the headlines of the NFL week, right? Is
they scored 26 points? Was the last one pick six? Yeah. They had a pick six in there. So the offense scores 19 points. They got short fields and all that stuff. If the Patriots defense had not been unbelievable the last couple weeks, there's more of a storyline about Mac Jones' terrible play.
And also, last week he was in fact, both weeks. Both the last 2 weeks, Mac Jones has played terribly, but has been the better of the two quarterbacks, which has to help, right?
That's true.
As bad as you think I was, the other guy was worse.
Zach Wilson was worse last week. Sam Ellinger was worse yesterday.
But Mac Jones is reaching the point where, I was saying right at the start that we weren't going to get enough runway to see if Bailey Zappi was a better option. But Mac Jones is playing his way to the bench at this point.
Man, I don't know.
He's not doing any of the things that were the reason why he was the better option,
Yeah, everything looks off with Mac Jones. I mean, his passes are dying. He almost had a turnover-worthy completion, just throws into coverage. Jacoby Myers almost wins it. Last year, you didn't see Mac Jones just miss a ton of throws. He'd have his rookie boneheaded decision in there, but he was very accurate and decisive.
Yeah.
And now it really is if he's coming off his first read, it's trouble. And general accuracy is just not there. He's sailing passes are dying on him. It's interesting because there's Baker Mayfield. Are we going down this Baker Mayfield path where Baker's first 8 or 10 games, I don't know if it was the best stretch of his career, but it was one of them. And Mac Jones might be in this point where his first 8 or 10 games are the best play that we've seen from him. And why is that? Right? He's supposed to go the other way. He's supposed to get better.
Yeah.
While, you've got the guys that have better tools, right? The knock on Mac Jones doesn't have the tools.
Well,
right? The guys that have better tools, even though it's not night and day, but Fields, a little bit of Zach Wilson, a little bit of Trevor Lawrence, you're starting to see their ability show up a little bit more.
But that becomes a real problem when you're playing badly because the team doesn't have the same reason to stick with you as it does with other quarterbacks. So Baker Mayfield, for all of his faults or positives, was the number 1 overall pick, still has a cannon for an arm, much though there's a group of people that always seem to disagree with that. Baker Mayfield has an elite arm and was the number 1 overall pick. Clearly, the team is tied to him in a fairly significant way, even when he's going to play badly for a stretch. Mac Jones was a mid-first round pick with marginal physical tools across the board, right? He's not bad physically, but his arm is average, his athleticism is average. There's nothing above average about his physical skill set. So if Mac Jones is going to start making bad decisions and just not be efficient with the ball, you're not tied to him the same way you would be if he was the number 1 overall pick or if he had the physical tools to be great. You're like, okay, the thing we were hanging our hat on here was your mental ability and the kind of the square foot of real estate above your shoulders. If that's gone, what are you bringing to the table right now? Because I already have one of those guys that I got in the, at the bottom of the draft sitting on the bench. What are you bringing to me right now? That's the situation Mac Jones is in, is that he right now he's not bringing anything to the table that's different from the career backup future that Bailey Zappi brings.
Yeah, it's just something to keep an eye on, man, because, look, I think if Patriots head to their bye week, they come out playing the Jets, Vikings, and Bills. 3 tough games. They still have the Bengals on the schedule, still have the Dolphins and Bills again, right, down in those last 2 games. I really think if Mac Jones doesn't play well the second half of the season, we're talking about, he's either getting benched for Zappi, who, whatever, Zappi's got the same limitations like you're saying, and we saw that on Monday Night Football. He's either getting benched or we're talking about the Patriots looking for a new quarterback maybe at the end of the season. That's legit.
Yeah.
All at the same time, we've had all these discussions with guys like Tua, right, with Daniel Jones, so players turn it around too, but it's an underrated story right now. The Patriots offense, or pass game at least, looks terrible, but they've won 4 out of their last 5.
He's going on a very long run of not looking good, which is problematic. Like, it's not even like we've hit an inconsistent patch of ups and downs. Like, this has been a long run of just being bad, and at some point, something needs to change to snap him out of that. Ellinger, by the way, went like 25 minutes of game time before he got his first completion in this game. So that wasn't good.
Felt like it.
Ramondre Stevenson had another great game. Like, he lost in all this. There's a lot of quarterbacks not playing particularly well. There's a lot of bad offense. There's a lot of running backs playing really well in the NFL right now.
Yeah, look, I like watching a good run game. We don't talk about it as much because it's less valuable. I like watching a good run game.
Liar.
It was fun watching Derrick Henry in the second quarter only last night in that game. All right, where are we going next? Let's go Lions 15, Packers 9.
Okay.
15-9. Lions win. They move to 2-6, just a half game behind the 3-6 Packers.
Yeah.
It's all falling apart here in Green Bay.
It is. Like, coming into this game, it was like, is this a get-right spot for the Lions?
I called it as a get-right. Listen.
And it made sense.
Everything makes sense, right? You're in the dome. You're going to throw the ball well. Lions have a historically bad defense. Get-right game for Green Bay. Yeah. That's who I picked. I was wrong.
Yeah. It made all the sense in the world. Like, not because – so the problems that ailed the Packers' offense were always going to still be there in this game. It's like they have no receivers that Rodgers trusts, and that makes everything worse. I think that is the crumbling foundation stone to everything that's wrong with the Packers' offense. Now, does that mean that there are no other issues? Of course not. But I think that's the biggest one that is sort of having knock-on effects of everything else, right? Like, a crumbling foundation – leads to cracks appearing up in the roof up here. It doesn't mean that they're interconnected. So Rodgers playing like crap is because he has receivers that aren't in the right place at the right time, that he doesn't trust, all these things. Like, that's the root cause. So that was always going to still be here in this game. Like, they didn't find anybody else. Did you, by the way, I get up on Sunday and you look at, news or Schefter or whatever, like, all of a sudden there's stories everywhere about everybody that the Packers tried to trade for before the deadline.
Yeah.
It's like, they offered a first-round pick for DJ Moore. They were right on the cusp of getting the Steelers.
Chase Claypool.
Yeah, Chase Claypool.
We tried.
They tried to get Darren Waller off the Raiders. Like, we tried to get everybody.
We tried, guys. Happen. We tried.
It's like, did that coincidentally all come out today, or did somebody at Green Bay just go, get them all out, throw all the stories out, because we're about to get hammered for not getting anybody.
I saw a little bit of Rich Eisen showing their behind the scenes. Did you see with Michael Irvin?
Yeah.
He was saying, I could only listen to like bits of it, but he said before the hit, right, before they're live on the air, Irvin gets like fired up. So he's like at the table like we would be off air. and he gets himself all fired. He gets himself into what we call the Burmeister. Paul Burmeister, who taught us at a young age, Sam, how to bring energy to the table when we're talking about stuff. Irvin's got this, right? He's got natural energy. But he fires himself. He's getting himself fired up and worked up about how the Packers did. I don't care what you talked about. I care about what you did. All this stuff. Yeah. And then he just like brings it right to the hit. I just thought that was great. Eisen showing that.
So anyway, my point being that was never going away because they didn't get any of those deals.
It was
done.
a PR,
if in fact
spin.
any of those deals were even attempted, as opposed to let's quickly put them out. But they went into this game with exactly the same wide receiver group as they'd had before this game. So that part was never going to move. But the Detroit Lions have an abysmal pass defense. They're 32nd in the NFL, i.e. dead-ass last in EPA per play as a defense. They stink as a defense. So you're like, that part can actually work. You didn't get any better in terms of wide receivers, but your wide receivers are going up against a terrible defense. So let's cook. Play number 1. Like, Dobbs goes down. Hobbled. Looks pretty bad. He might be done for a while. So immediately, arguably your best wide receiver is gone, and your group already stank. And then it's just, you could just see it's going bad across the board. Like, Sammy Watkins is never in the right place at the right time. That final interception, one of 3 for Aaron Rodgers, you could see how annoyed Rodgers was because whatever Watkins was supposed to run, I think he was trying to get to what he was supposed to run. His release off the line essentially took that play off, right? It's like...
Are you saying he was looking at Watkins and he came back to the middle?
No, he was trying to shoot for Watkins, but Watkins was supposed to run a post, but he released outside.
The last incompletion.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So last play of the game, it's 4th down, game's on the line.
Yeah, so Watkins releases to the outside, was probably supposed to be running the post that he tried to run, but because he released to the outside against physical contact, was never going to get there. So Rodgers is like, to hell with it. He released outside. It's one-on-one still. I'm going to give him a shot. And then he tries to break back to the post anyway, and Rodgers is like, what do you do? No, you can't go back to that after you screwed up the release and put yourself on the – like, no. And so they're just not on the same page.
I mean, that was a glaring one if you're really watching. At first glance, it's like, oh, Rodgers missed the throw. But obviously, Watkins and him are not on the same page on that one. The most glaring one was at the goal line when Watkins ran a slant and Rodgers threw a fade. Like a one-step fade, and Watkins ran a slant, and there was just nobody there.
Right. But these are plays where this is the crumbling foundation, right? But the crack in the roof is like Rodgers underthrowing David Bakhtiari, of all people, down by the goal line for an easy touchdown.
Even that stuff's missing, right? In 2020, it was year 2 of Matt LaFleur, and I could not be more impressed with their low red zone, just scheming it up, right? I mean, Rodgers had 1 million touchdowns. Rodgers played great that year, but he had so many gimme touchdowns. They were using motion and misdirection and play action off jet sweeps and all these different things. They even did a few weeks ago against the Giants. They had one of these. I mean, this was like, all right, let's go. 4th and 1, trickeration, and Rodgers underthrows Bakhtiari by a mile to Aiden Hutchinson.
This is where people analyze the results, not the process. Like, I saw people crapping all over that sequence. So, by the way, think about how that happened, right? Like, they had
Alan Lazard.
Yeah, absolutely.
This close.
So Lazard, suns Jeffrey Okudah, just dominates him on that route. Like, people are like, oh, it's a push-off. No, that was like general contact throughout the route. Okudah just winds up on the floor. Lazard dominates him, gets down inside the 1. And then that was the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th and 1 sequence. But so it went shotgun, run out of shotgun, right? Then it went the fade / slant, and then went run out of shotgun again, and then 4th and 1 trick play. But so people were ripping on that sequence. It's just, it's just terrible play calling. But running out of shotgun generally is a way to spread out a defense, keep them away from blocking up the points of attack, reduce the number of bodies at the line, and all you're looking for is a yard. And Green Bay has 2 of the best running backs in the NFL, so that makes perfect sense. The goal line fade / slant, okay, look, I don't like goal line fades as a general concept, but the fact that it's a slant / fade is, in theory, should mean that you're right, whatever you do, right? Because you're literally targeting where the defender isn't, right? Only they weren't on the same page. So again, I don't love that as a play, but it makes sense. And then the 4th and 1 play worked. They had David Bakhtiari. Okay, he's a left tackle. We can debate that. But they had a guy wide open in the end zone, and Rodgers just underthrows it by like 3 yards, and then Aiden Hutchinson makes a good play to get in the way and pick it off. But like, that play calling is fine. It's just not working anymore.
Yeah. It was bad, man. I mean, you're right, the play calling, like 2 runs at the goal line, not bad. That's where the Lions defense really stepped up. They held A.J. Dillon to 34 yards on 11 carries. They held Aaron Jones to 25 yards on 9 carries. Aaron Jones left the game banged up at one point. Rodgers finishes with 3 interceptions for the first time since 2017. The first one he threw right off of a Lions helmet, bounced up in the red zone. So that's the bottom line here. That's like a bad throw by Rodgers, like don't throw it off the helmet, but the fact that it's picked, a little bit of bad luck, the Bakhtiari underthrow and the interception, and then people were calling it a third. I mean, it was at like the 23 or whatever, but it was an interception at the goal line.
Yeah.
Great play by Kirby Joseph, the rookie safety.
Kirby Joseph had the game of his life.
Yeah.
The guy had multiple interceptions, right? He also had a diving pass breakup on a play. I think it was a deep shot to
little underthrown to Teray.
Yeah. And this is a perfect example of what I was talking about before. Like the wingspan or the area that you have to cover to get to a pass breakup is significant as a DB. So Toure is ahead of him. He's going to make the play. He's waiting for it to drop, and then Kirby gets his hand up and deflects it away, and that's a touchdown-saving pass breakup in addition to his multiple actual turnovers.
So all the while, Jared Goff, the Lions offense, I mean, there was a point where they weren't moving the ball at all. Goff threw an interception. Rodgers came back with an interception. It was a little back and forth as far as putrid offense goes. Packers defense overall played really well, but man, 15-9. We're very close. I mean, the Packers schedule, man, is tough. They're playing the Cowboys next week. And we're very close. So here's who the Packers have. Cowboys, Titans, Eagles the next 3 weeks. Still have to play the Bears again, who we know are tougher than they were. The Rams. I just lost myself. They still have the Dolphins and the Vikings and then the Lions again. I mean, we're like 1 or 2 losses away from the whole thing really collapsing. We're close. The whole thing really collapsing. And then us talking about, are the Packers going to be picking in the top 10? And are they looking to draft C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young and Will Levis and whoever else is available?
Yeah. And
like, we're close to talk about the Packers in a top 10 pick at quarterback because they're sitting here at 3-6.
Eli Berkovitz had a tweet that said, as if today wasn't bad enough for the Packers, Aaron Jones is in a walking boot. Romeo Doubs and Eric Stokes are both in walking boots and on crutches. So in addition to a game where they lost, they looked miserable doing it. Rodgers had his first 3-interception game in like 3 years. They also lost players through injury and pretty important ones. So, yeah, this is about as bad as it gets for Green Bay.
You know what's not bad is Underdog Fantasy. Even though Best Ball Mania has ended, Underdog Fantasy is still the easiest and most fun way to spice up your football season with their pick'em game. Just look at your favorite or least favorite player stats, pick whether you think they'll end up with a higher or lower total than the number in this week's game, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players for your pick'em entry. Get all your picks right, and you'll take home some cold, hard cash. It's simple to get started. Just head to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the app. Sign up with promo code PFF, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code PFF. Get in on the action today. That seems like a no-brainer. Go check it out, Underdog Fantasy. All right, where else are we going here? Let's go to Minnesota. So stay in the same division here. Minnesota 20. Washington Commanders 17. Minnesota moves to 7-1. A closing team. A fourth quarter Kirk Cousins team. Another fourth quarter comeback. And another nice video of him dancing with chains on the
more chains
on the plane.
Keep loading up the chains.
When Mac Brown came out of retirement at UNC, I know there's other coaches that go viral for dancing and all that stuff. Mac Brown comes to mind. The guy's like 80 years old. They're like, hey, do this cool new dance or whatever, and we're going to make it go viral. That's like Kirk Cousins after every win here. Vikings making him
Get this man his chains.
Do fun stuff. What a great game this was. Taylor Heineke, the arm punt of the season. A throw into triple coverage.
I think it's Mark Sanchez who was in this game because he's used this phrase before, and I love it. Mark Sanchez described that throw as it was a throw into a defensive team meeting.
Oh, yeah, that's
exactly what it was. There was 3 Vikings players up there and an official. And it turned out the official was the thing that saved it because the official takes out the safety that was about to pick it off, and then Curtis Samuel winds up winning a catch into double coverage as opposed to triple coverage and turns it into a touchdown. So that was like a turnover-worthy touchdown. That turned this, so that went from like the game was Minnesota's comfortably, and then a weird like sequence of plays. All of a sudden they're behind and trying to drag this game back.
You and I have both had an on-air coach at various times. It feels like since we know the inside baseball here, Sanchez is pretty good. I think he's all right on air. It feels like whoever's coaching him is like, hey, Mark, lean into the metaphors. Lean into, lean into the metaphors. Because he just, rattles them off.
That's a really good phrase.
That one's good. That one's good.
So the Vikings score early. They're 7-0 up. And then the end of the half sequence was kind of wild because they're going to score another touchdown. It's a deep pass into the end zone to Justin Jefferson. It's a contested catch. All of a sudden, Washington turned what was a touchdown into an interception. Like a contested ball bounces to the second guy, and it's an interception, no points instead of 7 more points just before the half. So Minnesota almost scored to make it a real problem for Washington, ends up turning it over. Benjamin St-Juste, I think, was the guy breaking it up. Then Washington gets a nice return because they get the ball at the start of the second half. They get a nice kick return on the opening play. And then Heineke throws up that turnover-worthy touchdown. So in the space of 3 consecutive plays, Minnesota has gone from about to go up 2 scores to all of a sudden you're behind.
Yeah.
Based off 3 pretty crazy plays in direct sequence either side of the half. Like that's how important these just either side of the half plays are.
There was also a negated pick 6 in there. That wasn't really a game changer. I think it was a penalty on the play. I don't think that was ever going to be. I don't think it was lucky or anything for Cousins, but it was one of those. For a minute, you thought, "Hey, Washington's running away with this thing." We had mentioned in the pre-show on our preview podcast, Jonathan Allen wreaking havoc on the interior for the Vikings. You saw a lot of that, right? Like even when there were open receivers, just pressure bearing down on Cousins. Jonathan Allen did have a monster game. But you're right. Like the Vikings score early, and then they didn't score again until the fourth quarter when it was time. And Cousins just dropping dimes in there. He had a few big time throws. Hit Adam Thielen on a bomb, but fourth quarter hitting Justin Jefferson down the sideline or down the field. The first throw to Justin Jefferson, by the way, the first touchdown to Justin Jefferson, also fantastic.
Yeah.
But then you're talking Cousins to Dalvin Cook on a little double move on the goal line.
Really
perfect
nice
throw.
Catch as well.
Yeah, and Dalvin's not always – I love Dalvin Cook. I think he's so explosive. My old comp was Fred Taylor. I don't think Fred Taylor – they're similar, right? Like you didn't always want to just line Fred Taylor up wide. I don't think Dalvin Cook is the guy that wins out wide like a Christian McCaffrey, like a real – like a great receiving running back. But he did in this case. Like every now and again, you would see Fred Taylor pull out one of those incredible receiving plays. That was Dalvin here, one-handed catch. And that sealed the deal for the Vikings.
It felt like Washington, their defensive line, I need to watch it again to figure out exactly what they were doing over the course of the game. But looking at it live, it was like they were trying to scheme Daron Payne one-on-one with Ed Ingram because Ed Ingram has been the weakest link on that Vikings offensive line and has struggled a lot. And they were kind of putting Jonathan Allen in the A-gap so that the center had to help. And all of a sudden, Daron Payne is one-on-one with Ingram But Ingram actually played really well. He actually dealt with that perfectly fine. Daron Payne didn't have a tremendously great game. He had a sack, but Ed Ingram had one of his best games of the season. But Jonathan Allen, in what appeared to be the move to help somebody else, was just dominating anyway. So Allen was causing all kinds of issues for Ezra Cleveland on the other side, and that was like their biggest thing.
They freed up Montez Sweat on a stunt too. He had 7 pressures. I mean, I thought Washington's defensive front looked great. They
It's still really good.
They
Yeah.
got terrible quarterback play again.
And then the other thing is, staying in the trenches, Zadarius Smith over the last few weeks has been starting to really cook and getting back towards his best play. Okay, he didn't have a sack in this game, but only because he got it taken away by some really unlucky / harsh face mask penalty. Like, he grabbed hold of the guy like in the pads up front, but on the way there, his thumb
Nicked.
It like grazed the face mask and bent it down for a split second, and then it came out, and they call face mask for that. But he had 9 pressures in this game. He's been absolutely cooking in pressures over the last few weeks. He's like Danielle Hunter hasn't quite gotten back to his best play, but Zadarius Smith has. And those
people are going to say Hunter had 2 sacks.
Yeah, I know, but
and both of them were dominant.
Yes,
that was pretty much it as far as wins go. That's fine. I mean, but the 2 wins were awesome.
I'm talking not just this week, but
in general.
Over general this season, Zadarius Smith is the better of the 2 pass rushers. But the point is, those 2 getting anywhere near their best play makes a significant difference to that defense.
Yeah, I mean, look, Washington, they were gifted the first touchdown. There's no doubt about it. But it was an opportunity, man. It was an opportunity for Washington to get to 5-4 in this wide open, weird NFC. We'll
Also,
say
by
it
the
a weird
way,
NFC.
Part of Minnesota not scoring again, until late, or not kind of running away with this, is Justin Jefferson failed on a few contested catches that would have been, they're pivotal plays in the game. One of them was the touchdown that became an interception before the half. There was another one late that would have been a touchdown that was broken up. Like, they're plays that you don't it's not like a drop, right? Where it's like, this is in his hands, he drops it, it's a bad play by the wide receiver. But these are plays that all 3 of them that I can think of off the top of my head are plays that Justin Jefferson could have made and has made in the past and didn't make in this game. So he had 5 contested targets in this game, caught 2 of them. Like, Justin, and at least I think all 3 of the ones I can think of that were incomplete all 3 of them are plays Justin Jefferson is well capable of making. Like, if he makes one of those, it's an extra touchdown on the board for Minnesota.
So would you say this is one where Minnesota's actually better than the scoreboard, better in this game than the scoreboard would indicate? 3-point win, you got to come away with the win, but Minnesota, fine line here, and they played better than maybe the 20-17 score would indicate.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you give them an extra 7 points and you say it's a 27-17 game, it's like a routine win.
Is that your adjusted score?
Yeah, the adjusted score.
That's good, yeah.
And nobody's thinking about it. So I guess, I think that's probably fair given the throws to Justin Jefferson that didn't come off that usually do.
I mean, you take away pass interference by the referee.
Yes.
And Taylor Heineke has 100 passing yards, minus 23. Right, you've got 77 net passing yards outside of the 49-yarder that took place on the throw into the defensive team meeting, as you said earlier.
It's fascinating that when you they kind of pitch it over, it's Blandino, right? They pitch it over to Dean Blandino, and it's like, yeah, that's just the officials on. It just happens. You're like, it doesn't feel like it should. I'm not sure you can just explain that away by going, sometimes the official's going to take out your safety, and you just have to live with it. Like, what? That's not acceptable. There's a lot of field back there to aim for,
Yeah.
Be somewhere else, anywhere else.
You're also, most of the refs aren't like the most nimble guys in the world.
Which is all the more reason to just not be where the safety is.
They're not the twitchiest guys in the world. They're just going to let me just shake these 3 safeties running at me. There's 3 defensive backs in the area.
Yeah. But it's just the sort of nonchalance with which we can dismiss the safety taking out a DB.
Back judge doesn't play well in a phone booth.
Like, it's just a hazard of playing football. You just got to live with it, move on. Like, or we could say that's a pretty big mistake by the official and maybe focus on that for a second.
Man, got to give credit to Kirk Cousins, man. Making plays in the fourth quarter. All the stuff that we, for years, felt like he couldn't do. And he's doing it all season. Comeback master.
For example, by the way, I don't mean to harp on, and always point out how rugby's better than football, but when the ref gets in the way and obstructs the play or the ball hits him or whatever, it's like a do-over. You're stop and reset because you just screwed up.
You would do over this Curtis Samuel play?
Yeah, why not? If you can negate a play for like offsetting penalties and it didn't count, let's just do it over. If the official takes out a safety, you don't think we can be like, okay, reset, the official blew that play. Let's start over.
I like when that used to be a strategy when the ump was on top of the ball. You'd run your mesh concept
right
behind the ump.
Yeah. I just,
Extra pick.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the idea of saying that guy actually destroyed that play. We have to do that over. That's not fair.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's go Chargers 20, Falcons 17. Chargers move to 5-3. Falcons fall to 4-5 in the NFC South. Weird back and forth game here. Crazy one. Did you see my Chargers stat that I tweeted out?
No, what'd you have?
So the Chargers are 5-3.
Yes.
And this year they've got whatever the record was for like most 50-yard rushes given up in a 7-game period. The other record that they have is 4 straight games the Chargers have been down 10-0 after the first quarter. You'd think we were talking about like a 1-7 type of team here or whatever it is, but they're 5-3. It's just the Chargers, I think they're the most fascinating team in the NFL because of everything.
One of the bets that we have, the listeners versus podcast bets, is that the Falcons will finish this season with a better record than the Chargers. And for a lot of the
This
period,
is big for us. This is big for us.
For a lot of this game, I was like, wow, that's actually going to come off. And it may still, but
we need to
thankfully,
do you want to do that on Wednesday, a midseason review of
I was thinking of that.
Of our bets?
Uh-huh.
Because
and maybe add some more. So if you have more bets that you want to throw in based off stuff that we've been saying during the season,
if you're a new listener, what we did here before the season, we just said, if we have a strong take and you disagree with it, like we said the Jets are going to be trash and you said no, they're going to be good. You can.
And this is, by the way, we
turned a bunch down.
Yeah, and a lot of people were complaining at the sort of the certainty of the bets that we took. Like they were all massively weighted in our favor. It's like, yeah, but this is why. Because the NFL is weird, and even though we only took bets that we were like almost certain would pay off in our favor, we're going to lose a bunch of them. This is what, this is literally the whole point of the exercise is that we are this sure about all these things, and yet we're going to be wrong about a bunch of them.
We want you to push. The idea here, it started with Raiders fans when we said, hey, the Raiders are going to be terrible. And Raiders fans stepped up and said, no, we're going to be great. Let's bet on it, basically. Like we're not just betting randomly. We're betting on stuff that we believe in that you disagree with.
We believe in a lot, and you think we're wrong.
Correct.
And you're going to be right on some of this stuff because we will be wrong about some of it, and we've already seen that is the case. For example, Geno Smith all of a sudden being amazing. We didn't see that coming at all. And if you did, you will win a bet against
I felt strongly that Geno Smith and or Drew Lock would not finish in the top quarter.
Correct.
Of top 25% of NFL quarterbacks. So far, we're very wrong, and Johnny Seahawks fan who wanted to make that bet is looking good, right? So that's what we're talking about. We'll probably review that stuff on Wednesday.
Anyway.
Back to Chargers-Falcons. Weird, just crazy stuff all over the place. Falcons run game looking great again. Cordero Patterson comes back, has 2 touchdowns, absolutely owns Drew Tranquil.
Poor Drew
on a
Tranquil.
3-yard.
Got run over.
3-yard touchdown. He just hurt
You don't
him.
often see a former wide receiver come running back just run right over the top of a linebacker.
I mean, this is why Patterson is one of the coolest players in the NFL. This is why you love him so much, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should not have receivers running with power. I do feel like, as I've watched running backs more this year, there are some running backs trying to punish defensive backs, or just, Tranquil's a linebacker, but just trying to punish defensive players this year.
Tranquil is like 6'2", 6'3", 235 pounds, and got run over.
Yeah, like he looked like a 180-pound defensive back on that play. All I'm saying is, in this year of a little bit less offense, more zone coverage and everything, it feels like a more physical brand of football. Because you're seeing more zone, you're seeing a lot more players with eyes on the ball, closing, and we're just seeing more hard hits, legal hard hits. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like a more physical brand of football this year in the NFL. Which is fun. I think it was after the game, probably, Brandon Staley said Justin Herbert's healthy now, finally, and he admitted their game plans were a little bit more conservative. We've pushed back on, hey, you got to let him throw the ball down the field. It didn't change much in this one. They still have a ton of injuries at receiver. Josh Palmer, DeAndre Carter, the 2 top receivers. They're not pushing the ball down the field a lot. The
Certainly
Chargers.
probably wasn't during the game that he said that.
It was either before or after.
If for no other reason than I haven't seen any coach say anything of substance during these
Certainly was
interviews that happened during the game.
Was not during the game.
I'm not quite sure why those
Although,
are happening.
Todd Bowles, you never hear this though. He was like, "Oh, we're gonna keep establishing the run, and we're gonna wear him down in the fourth quarter and run some more screens." Like, you don't see a coach actually say, "We're gonna run more screens here in the second half." That was part of his halftime.
I'm waiting for any coach to say anything of interest during those drive-by interviews that are happening during games. It's one of those things.
Other sports are having success. I'm not going to mention which one. With in-game interviews.
It's one of those things I think that feels like a better idea than it actually is in practice. It's like, what if we get the live, unfiltered view of the head coach? Like, you're not getting that. You're getting, like, I am trying to deal with a game right now, and some guy or woman has a microphone in my face. I have to say something to get rid of this person so I can go back to my real job.
I wouldn't go to the coaches because you know you're not going to get anything good. You know it's going to be coach speak. The other sport, get the baseball talk ticker. Baseball did two things this year. They had pitchers mic'd up during the All-Star game. And you can't really do that in a game. Yeah, look at that. There we go. Oh, we're almost to 1,600.
Yeah, it's good.
It's impressive. There we go. We did it.
Rugby deserves one from earlier, right? The officials thing. So that's got to have a tally.
He's been on top of it. Yeah. So they mic'd up pitchers, getting into their thought process on all the pitches. I don't know if you could do that in a regular season game. But in the postseason, like a guy would hit, I think Bryce Harper hits like the go-ahead home run in the 8th inning, and they're like in his face in the dugout. Like, tell me about it, right? If you interviewed a receiver after mossing somebody or catching a touchdown or whatever, go to the receiver. He'll talk trash. You know, that will be exciting. Don't go to the coach. What are you trying to do here? We're just trying to execute better. Got to execute. Got to play hard. We're trying to finish. We're really focused on finishing. That's what we're focused on. No, you go to the receiver. You go to the defensive back that just picked it off, right? The guy who's wearing the turnover chain in college or whatever. You got to go interview the guy, right? That's what you got to do. Anyway, what else about this game?
What else about this game? I mean,
Khalil Mack, it looked like a huge game. I mean, it was a game-changing play because it took the Falcons out of the red zone, but then the Chargers threw an interception right away. But Khalil Mack just goes and takes the ball from Drake London inside the 5.
This was a game where, like, instant replay was the MVP. Like, it felt throughout the NFL this week that fumbles were way more prominent than they had been recently. I don't know if there was a massive uptick. There was a couple more this week than there were the week before, but they all seem to be really important on massively relevant plays. So in this game, it sort of hinged on a couple of plays where replay was really important. Austin Eckler catches the ball, gets tackled, looked like he made an insane play to stay on his feet and keep going and run down the sideline for a touchdown. And he kind of did. Like, he realized that he was going to come down and land on the body of the dude trying to tackle him, and did that thing, you know, the kind of wrestling move where you get up from the floor by, like, kicking your way out, you know, kicking your way back to your feet. He sort of did that, except instead of kicking his way off the floor, he kicked his way off the body of the guy he was lying on. But on his way to that position, he'd put his elbow down, which is down. But that looked, for all the world, like he'd scored a touchdown. And then replay comes in and goes, no, elbow's down, doesn't count. And then there was that weird play towards the end where there were multiple fumbles, where, again, Eckler fumbles, Falcons pick it up, return it, fumble it. They just lost the handle on the ball again, and the Chargers recover it, but like way further back than they started. And then replay comes along and is like, nah, you know what? He was down at the start. None of that happened.
It wasn't that fun. It was fun. It looked fun, but it wasn't that fun. That's what replay said. Chargers have a 7-minute drive in the fourth quarter to tie it up at 17. There's about 5:27 left. The Falcons go 3 and out. Chargers come back. A lot of that madness is happening, but they basically run it all the way down to where they kick the field goal right at the end. Right? So the Chargers just owned that last 12 minutes of the game as far as having the ball and coming away with the win.
It was such a weird game because, as a lot of people were pointing out, what you had here was chargering colliding with, you know, the Falcons. Yeah, and it's both those things trying to survive at the same time was inevitably going to lead to a ridiculous game with the razor-thin margins. It was going to come down to the end, only for it to be won by Dicker the kicker.
Well done. I can't top that. Let's finish there.
Okay.
All right, Panthers and Bengals. Bengals win 42-21. Wasn't even that close, though.
No.
It was 42-7 at one point. PJ Walker was looking good for a few weeks. He was not looking good in this game. Gets benched for Baker Mayfield. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals bounce back. The real story, though, it's the Joe Mixon game. 4 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. A 5-touchdown game for Joe Mixon.
Yeah, the Panthers had no answer whatsoever for Joe Mixon, which is weird because this is exactly what we said was going to happen going into this game. Like, the Bengals offense looked bad last week without Jamar Chase. They couldn't really get it going through the air. And they're like, they are 100% going to decide that the solution to this is to focus more on the run game and Joe Mixon, you know? And going against Carolina's defense, which had been really good against the run up until last week, that actually felt like a pretty good game plan for Carolina. Like this, the Bengals offense that is not as explosive as it was with Jamar Chase is about to try and establish the run against you, you know? And you have Derek Brown inside, like you have a good defense. That's a perfect game for Carolina. Only they, despite knowing it was coming, they couldn't stop it. And they got absolutely destroyed on the ground. And then early, I felt a little bit sorry for PJ because like he didn't play well in this game. He had a couple bad turnovers. But this was one of those games where the game flow took the game away from you really early. They had no answer to Joe Mixon. Right, one of the first, maybe the first drive he had, certainly the first couple, PJ escapes the pocket, gets out, finds space, delivers a perfect pass, and then his receiver, Tommy Tremble, drops it. And you're like, come on, look. You know, when you have quarterbacks that are not the best QB in the world, like, you have to help them out and catch the plays where they put it in your hands. So they, you know, that doesn't happen. Carolina ends up crapping out in their drives. All of a sudden, they're in a like multiple score hole, and now PJ's got to chase the game, and that's just probably not going to happen. So from that point, now he's forcing the ball, you know, throws it to a linebacker down the seam, and then it's gone to hell at that point. And then, you know, the Panthers are 35-0 up at halftime, and PJ gets pulled fairly soon after that.
Oh, man, Joe Mixon coming into the game was averaging, where did my number go? 3.4 yards per carry. Didn't it feel like that too? Like Joe Mixon was creeping toward. Look, he was drafted in 2017. That's like, it's kind of an age, you know. You're getting old, running back terms. You know, you're in year 6. He's starting to get to that like Thomas Jones level of mediocrity. I'm just going to get exactly what's there.
You just said Joe Mixon was Thomas Jones.
I mean, didn't he look like that for the first 8 weeks of the season, 9 weeks of the season, whatever it is?
Because their offensive line stank.
Yeah, but still, he wasn't doing anything above and beyond what they were giving him. But something happened between Monday and Sunday. He looked fast, Mixon. He looked explosive, powerful. Everything looked better with Mixon. Every type of run, they're running outside zone, duo, everything they're running was outstanding. The run blocking was much better. I mean, the Bengals won up front, but Mixon was fantastic. And then his receiving touchdown, too. Joe Burrow has basically back-to-back passes where it's a scramble drill. Trent Irwin just misses one along the sideline, and then almost a near identical pass where Burrow hits Joe Mixon on the scramble drill and gets it in there for the touchdown. So Burrow played a clean, efficient game, but this was about Mixon, man. He looked completely different. And the thing I said before the game, Zach Taylor, like when you're looking at a head coach and you're talking about the attitude of a team, the identity of a team, right? The Bengals the last couple of years, I think if you're evaluating Zach Taylor, the head coach, you could say, why do they have some of these lulls? They had a lull. They were terrible on Monday Night Football against the Browns. Last year, they were terrible against the Browns in the middle of the season, against the Jets when the Jets weren't good. But they bounced back from those lulls, right? You can ask the question, why do they have these weeks where they don't show up? Those are not good. But I said on the pre-show, I've been impressed with how Zach Taylor's helped this team bounce. They've bounced back, right? Even when it seemed like things were going to fall apart, they bounced back strong. Maybe it's just playing at home. I don't know. They seem like they're a better home team in recent weeks here. But they bounced back strong in this one against the Panthers team that they were turning a corner in their season, right? PJ Walker was playing better. The defense, yeah, they were bad at times last week against the Falcons, but the defense has had good performances. The Panthers looked like, hey, we're at least going to be this competitive team for the rest of the year. and the Bengals dominated them from start to finish, much like they did the Falcons a couple weeks ago at home.
Yeah, but Carolina's defense was annihilated in this game. I actually think there's reasons to be encouraged for the offense. Okay, PJ had a bad game, got benched. Baker Mayfield comes back in. The game is long dead at that point. So it's one of those where, it's all garbage time in the second half. But in that garbage time, Baker Mayfield actually started getting something going. Like they actually started to have some kind of success in the passing game. And one thing that's slightly different right now than was earlier in the year when Baker was struggling and getting nowhere is this offensive line is a lot better than it was at the start of the season. Ike Ekwonu, their top rookie, the first 3 games he had were pretty disastrous, certainly in terms of pass blocking. Since that point, he's been one of the best pass blocking tackles in the NFL. This was another game where he had a pretty good run, didn't give up a sack, only a couple of pressures, going up against some legit pass rushers. The entire offensive line for Carolina in this game held up really well against a pretty good defense. So, Baker Mayfield doesn't look like he's going to be the answer anytime soon, but that offensive line all of a sudden is giving them a pretty good platform for success in a way that hasn't been the case for multiple seasons now.
Look at you, Mr. Positive, for the Panthers who got smoked.
Yeah.
Now, this is a dominant outing by the Bengals without Jamar Chase.
Yep.
With no Jamar Chase. That's huge. Joe Mixon, you got to admit, he looked like a completely different running back, didn't he? He looked completely different than what he did early in the season. It wasn't just, the run blocking opened up some holes. He played differently.
Yeah, but I think the run blocking really opened up some holes, and that's when a running back tends to look like he's going to play differently. He actually had somewhere to go in this game. That hasn't been the case for quite a while.
Now the question for the Bengals, do you chase this every week? Are you going to chase the Joe Mixon game? Where you're going to rely on him? Because that's where they got into trouble. This is where we push back on the run game. When the run game is executed, it is valuable and the run game won this for the Bengals yesterday, right? Burrow didn't even have to complete a pass, and they still would have won because the run game was that good. But when you chase that every week, it's tough to replicate that level of success every single week. When you chase the run game and you start to take the ball out of Burrow's hands, that's when it gets a little iffy. That's how I want to see how the Bengals respond here.
It's fascinating the psychological effect that a dominant running game has versus anything else. I was listening on the radio on the way in this morning to post-game comments from Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon and Burrow sounded more hyped about what just happened than any time I've ever heard him talk before.
They love it, yeah.
When we run the ball like that, we're unstoppable. Nobody can live with us. He's not making those noises after a dominant passing outing, Yeah. And I think that's not just him that's not just leadership. It's not just him understating his own impact on the offense and talking up other people. There's something about the run game in football that affects you psychologically different than the passing game does. So when you just impose your will and dominate on the ground the way the Bengals did in this game, it sort of feels different than an explosive passing attack where you just put up a ton of points. You come away with it in a sort of more with a more visceral reaction than that. I don't know quite what to do with that other than I think you're right. It is potentially dangerous to then fall into this trap of going, we need to do that again. We need to come out and dominate everybody on the ground. It's well, okay, but the next time, if you're not playing a team like Carolina and they can actually stop the run, your offense becomes the Buccaneers, where you just run the ball into the teeth of the defense over and over and over again and go nowhere.
Yeah, it is the psychological effect. You're absolutely right. Quarterbacks love it. That's why on the Manning cast, they're doing
offensive linemen love it. Everybody loves it.
The Manning cast, it is amazing to me, especially Peyton, how comfortable, how much they appreciate a 3-yard run, right? Just the mentality. But it's ingrained in them. Get to 2nd and 7. Get to 2nd and 7. Now Peyton didn't really play like that. Eli didn't play like that. Eli didn't want 3 yards. He wanted big plays. Now, Eli took his checkdowns when he needed to, but how much they're trained to stay on schedule. And it is interesting. We don't have time to talk about that anymore, though. Jaguars 27, Raiders 20. The Jaguars made a comeback. On the other hand, the Raiders blew a 17-point lead.
Again.
Do you have the stats?
I have one of the stats. the most 17-point leads blown in the NFL this season. This is from NFL and CBS last night. The Las Vegas Raiders have now done it 3 times this season. The rest of the NFL combined has done it twice.
Yeah. Where's the other one that I had?
The other one
Here it
was
is.
all-time Raiders 17 or more point leads.
This
being
one
blown.
This one blew my mind. NFL and CBS once again. Look at that crack research team on for the NFL and CBS. Good work by them. Between 1960 and 2021, they had blown 5 17-point leads, and they're up to 3 so far this year in 8 games.
What's that time span again?
1960. That's before the merger.
Yes.
Pre-merger. AFL Raiders.
AFL Raiders. So the entirety of the Oakland, Los Angeles, Oakland again, and Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Combined for 5, did you say?
5 times.
Yeah. And they've already done it 3 times this year.
It wasn't like they were the most pristine franchise with as far as win-loss records go.
Josh McDaniels is on his way to being the worst head coach in NFL history. Certainly the worst that's had multiple swings at the bat.
It.
Seriously. He rode the Denver Broncos off a cliff in fairly quick order. He had a 6-0 start, then apparently people figured out they were taping practices, and from that moment on, the entire Broncos fell apart. And now, it took him 15 years to get another shot, and now he's back in charge, and the Raiders stink. I'm just saying, there's been some really bad head coaches
Other
in the NFL.
than
And those guys get run out after one shot, and they're never going to get a second job. Nobody's given Urban Meyer a second crack at this, right? So those guys are in their own little category. But of the people that have had multiple swings at head coach, you can't, unless this turns around pretty quickly, there's not going to be too many resumes that are worse than this.
He's not out after 1 year, McDaniels.
He works for the Las Vegas Raiders.
It's not, this isn't like Urban Meyer levels of disaster. It's not. Listen, let's just, I got suckered in. I got suckered into the preseason hype. I thought Devontae Adams, I was 2 out of 3 correct. That Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, 2 out of 3 have absolutely transformed their offense. It hasn't happened with Devontae Adams except for the first quarter in this game.
Yeah. They were 17-0 up.
But all I'm saying is your expectation for the Raiders before I got duped, right? The whole month of July and August, I was like, boom, jumping on this bandwagon with the Raiders. Your expectations weren't high this year. They were a lucky playoff team last year. Yeah. Every data point pointed to that. They were an overrated playoff team based off point differential, based off how they played, all of that stuff. So what?
Well, part of that
were your expectations for the Raiders this year? They're 2-6. That's you thought they were better than that.
Yes.
I know.
Part of my tap the brakes on the Raiders thing was that the offensive line looked like one of the worst in the league. Their offensive line has been coming together. It's still not good, but it's a lot better than I thought it might be. And
as of 2 weeks ago, it looked like they had found their identity and they were playing better. In the last 2 weeks, just disastrous.
So and then the Devontae Adams thing was supposed to function, and it has in spurts this year. The first quarter, Devontae Adams was 6 targets, 6 catches, 88 yards, and a touchdown, and the Raiders were cooking. They went 17-0 up against Jacksonville, and you're like, oh, this game's done. They put a fork in this.
Yeah.
And then they didn't score for basically the rest of the game, and the Jags kept on coming back. And Trevor Lawrence had maybe the best game he's ever had in the NFL in one of the least consequential games he's played. Trevor Lawrence quietly has his best performances when they couldn't matter less.
They all matter. This matters.
But it's the way our logic was that Kirk Cousins in London, 9 a.m., that's Kirk's time.
I got you, yeah.
Kirk was going to be at his best at 9 in the morning when nobody's watching.
This was a good, what do you call it, the witching hour, Hansen calls it? This was a good 3:45 Eastern time, to 4 p.m., that window of every game's on the line.
You think where Trevor Lawrence's best games would come from, right? Thursday night when nobody's watching. Games against the Colts.
It's an island game.
It's a Thursday night game. People hate that game.
Week 18 against the Colts.
The Colts, and then a 1 p.m. against the Raiders, where you're 17-0 down before you start playing.
I want to get to Lawrence in a minute. Let's just talk about Raiders' futility really quick. Carr goes 10 of 13 for 123 in the first quarter. Mm-hmm. Fantastic in the first quarter. He had 123 passing yards in Q1. 136 over the final 3 quarters, 51 grade in the last 3 quarters of the game. Multiple comeback attempts. It just felt like every throw was just off. Almost every throw in crunch time was off from Derek Carr. It wasn't one of those games where you say, hey, they got away from the run too much. I thought they ran the ball enough. With Josh Jacobs, he had 17 carries. Maybe you want to run clock more, but like you still just stop scoring points. At some point, you got to stop scoring. You still have to keep scoring points, even though you're up. So Raiders, poor job there. Trevor Lawrence was just fantastic. I think this was his very best game.
Yeah.
His very best game. He was throwing the ball outside the numbers. Trayvon Merrick, that's another one, just disappointing player for the Raiders. Last year's second-round pick. We had him as a first-round type of player. Very good rookie season, just looks lost in this defense. A lot asked of him. He got beat by Christian Kirk on a touchdown and just having a terrible season. But Lawrence looked fantastic, man. There's one play where instant pressure in Lawrence's face. He sidesteps it, hits a little 12-yard out. I mean, it's 12-yard out, but the footwork and ability to avoid the pressure and put the ball, I think it was on Kirk, put the ball right on Kirk, who was interfered with, unbelievable. And we saw, not that every play was like that, but Lawrence was just accurate, incredible. He finishes 25 of 31 for 235 and a score. Again, it's not like the best stat line we've ever seen, but as far as throwing the ball goes, adding value with the run game and everything, Lawrence was fantastic in this game.
Yeah, he was. He played fantastic. And then Travis Etienne had a great game again. Like he's justifying the kind of moves that the Jags have made to A, install him as the starter, B, move on from James Robinson despite the lack of kind of track record from Etienne. He had another great game. Another case of just the difference between the first quarter and the rest of the game. He had like 4 carries for 7 yards in the first quarter. And then from that moment on, quarters 2, 3, and 4, 24 carries for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. So this whole game, the first quarter and the next 3 were not the same game. They didn't, that cliche of it's a game of 2 halves. Well, this was a game of the first quarter and then the next 3 quarters, bearing absolutely no resemblance to each other.
I'm just proud of Trevor for making a comeback.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean. He made a comeback. I've been saying, hey, when are you gonna go take over a game? Now, it wasn't. It was a fourth quarter comeback. Yeah, they technically took the lead in the fourth quarter, but I thought it was good for Trevor Lawrence, seeing, hey, you're down a bunch, put a little bit more on your shoulders. Etienne was a huge part of it as well, but a comeback from the Jags. Jags moved to what, 3-5, 3-6. Raiders 2-6.
In addition to the players that we mentioned being in walking boots for the Packers, they've apparently lost Rashawn Gary to an ACL.
Yeah, Rashawn Gary.
Al McGrath in the chat had it, but it's also out there. Jeremy Fowler tweeted that the initial belief is a torn ACL, and initial belief on an ACL means it's a torn ACL.
I think we already had an email asking, when do the Packers turn to Jordan Love to see what he has?
God, can you imagine Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, we're not there yet. Packers fans are the most optimistic. Packers fans are like, 2016, we were 4-6. Aaron said, "Run the table."
Yeah.
And then the realistic Packers fans are like, "Yeah, it's not the same team. Not the same."
We're not there, but we're definitely at the point where, like, okay, what's left for you this season? Because it's not win a Super Bowl. Like, what are you getting out of this year now?
Maybe there should have been sellers at the deadline.
Maybe.
Trade Rodgers.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have time for this.
It's too late.
They're screwed. Yeah.
Packers are in trouble. Look at you, keeping us on track. All right, Jags 27, Raiders 20. I think that's all the 1 o'clock games. Let's go to the 4 o'clock. Seattle Seahawks 31, Arizona Cardinals 21. Seahawks.
All 2 of them?
Yeah. I think what happened here is CBS. So CBS got the NFC game, right? This is kind of like CBS's island game, right? You get to your game of the year. They pick Rams-Bucks as their game of the year, where the NFL says we'll only have one other game opposite, and it'll be a terrible game. It'll be Seahawks Cardinals, right? Going into the year, who wanted to see Seahawks Cardinals? So that's why you'll have the 2 in the 4 o'clock window, I believe. Anyway,
local broadcasting rules the world over are so archaic and lodged in the past. It's absurd.
Yeah,
blackouts. this kind of idiocy where you've got 8 games in the 1 p.m. slate and 2 in the 4 p.m. slate, at least one of which is terrible.
Don't get me started. I'm full boomer.
So bad
when it comes to streaming too. I am full boomer.
No, streaming is good.
No, streaming is not. I mean,
streaming is good. We need to embrace that world and say, stop with this blackout crap. This can't play this while we're like.
Yeah, that's
the
fine.
idea that
lose the blackouts.
The idea that Red Zone has to like shut off when there's only 1 game left because of local broadcasting rules is ridiculous. We are in a world now where you can stream any game you want to watch and pay for any game you want to watch. Just let that happen.
Get Sunday ticket.
Just pay. Let me stream all of the games at once and pay for those games. The end. Stop making me do all this other crap. It's ridiculous. It's based off a system that is completely irrelevant in the modern world. Wake up and smell the streaming, Steve. Embrace it. That's where we are as a society now.
If I'm in a 1 television room watching Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football, and I can't even flip a channel to go see something else during a commercial or anything like that, I can't even flip a channel. Like if the World Series is on, for instance.
Well, that's an Amazon's platform problem. That's not a
streaming
streaming
problem.
problem.
That's a streaming problem.
No. If you have YouTube TV, for example, you can flip channels pretty easily.
I'm talking about exclusive streaming that I have to go to Amazon Prime. I have to go to ESPN Plus. I have to go to all these things.
That's not a streaming problem. That's a platform problem. YouTube TV is streaming.
But this is where we're moving.
TV.
Amazon's going to be getting the Sunday ticket package at some point.
So
if they don't give me an 8-box mix like DirecTV does, I'm going to be. I might quit.
So your complaint is not streaming as a concept is inadequate to my needs. Your complaint is Amazon's platform is substandard right now. Give me this feature.
No, it's when something has to be exclusive in any app. Besides, YouTube TV is replicating cable television, which is fine, right?
Is in an app.
Like if you take the remote out of someone's hand where they can't go to watch multiple things, that is not a move forward for society.
So my point is your complaint is with the platform's inadequacy, not with the concept being flawed.
No, exclusivity. I mean, if I have to go watch ESPN Plus or whatever it is, I can't go watch NFL Network. I can't click to NFL Network.
Also, by the way, we're at the point where like TVs can handle picture-in-picture and multiple apps at the same time. Like, just get a better setup, to be honest.
I have a great setup in my upstairs, but what if I'm downstairs? What if I want to be downstairs? I don't have a setup in every single room in my house. Anyway, let's go.
Again, it sounds like a you problem.
Seahawks 31, Cardinals 21. We just talked about it. We just complained. I complained boomer style. That's all we need to know. Geno Smith take it over in the fourth quarter along with Kenneth Walker. This game also wasn't as close as the score. You've got a kind of not a fluky play, a great play by Zaven Collins, a pick six.
Yep.
Not a great decision by Geno Smith, but a weird one. Pick six on a screen, and Zaven Collins takes it to the house. But Seattle really dominated this one, though.
Yeah, they did. And God, Geno Smith's so good. I know it's weird saying that after he pitches the ball to Zaven Collins for a pick six, but
he got away with another one too. Just before I think it was DK Metcalf first touchdown, he did throw one. Was it Byron Murphy dropped in the end zone? Somebody dropped it in the end zone.
Byron Murphy.
So there were two where Geno got away with.
Yeah.
But his ability to bounce back. Go ahead, carry on.
But what I love is his process right now, because we're not looking at a guy who's just sort of getting by and getting lucky and escaping with a bunch of bad decisions and is just riding the up end of variance, right? We are seeing plays that demonstrate a process that Geno Smith, I don't think, had the capacity for in the past. Or at least certainly didn't demonstrate it on a consistent basis. There was a play where they ran a kind of trick play throwback thing, right? And usually those are like, throw to the flat, throw back to the QB, and he's looking deep. It's a one-read thing. It's like I'm taking this deep shot or I'm dumping the ball or running, Geno takes a look at it, doesn't like the deep shot, works to a second read that generally doesn't really exist in these trick plays, and hits a tight end over the middle for like a moderate gain as opposed to the all or nothing deep shot. Like that process to be able to run the trick play, don't like the one shot that it's really dialed up for, and find a secondary option without resorting to sort of panic, I think is just really high-end quarterback play that we're seeing consistently from him this year. And even when he does make mistakes, like the pick six or the play that could have been picked off, like the overall baseline of his play is just so consistently high. It's really impressive.
I'm impressed. He had 3 first downs as a runner. as well when he needed to scramble and everything. And I'm impressed with that part too. 2 scrambles, 1 designed. I'm impressed with what he's done with his legs, what he's done under pressure, what he's done out of structure. Like, again, none of that stuff was a part of his game, either when he was a starter 8 years ago or in preseason the last few years, for whatever that's worth, right? We didn't see any of this stuff. So, yeah, very impressed with Geno Smith overall.
Another game where I'm so fascinated now by those sequences just either side of halftime, because in so many games, those are so ridiculously important. So this is a 10-7 game before halftime, and then the Cardinals are driving with
25 seconds left here. Is this the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, but generally that sequence. So they get the ball with 2 and a bit minutes, or 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes, whatever, to go before the half. They're driving. They're going to try and score before halftime, take the lead in this game, and they get the ball back. It's all those, like, can you double dip either side of halftime and completely change the outcome of the game? So the Cardinals are driving, and it is 3rd and 4. Robbie Anderson just drops a stone-handed, right in his hands, clanger, drops it, 3rd and 4. Then, so it's 4th down, right? What do you do? 3rd and 4, or 4th and 4, 4th down. Kyler Murray gets buried really quickly into the play. He's about to get destroyed, ends up escaping it. Classic Kyler Murray play, escapes the traffic, starts running. He's got a lot of real estate in front of him. He's about to turn this into a really big gain, 1st down, and then just fumbles the ball away instead. So, like, Arizona driving to try and take the lead, all of a sudden fumbles the game away, or fumbles the ball away. Seahawks get it, and it doesn't go against them the way it could have gone. And Robbie Anderson, by the way, had a nightmare in this game. In addition to that 3rd and 4 drop, he had a false start that negated a DeAndre Hopkins touchdown later in the game. Okay, they scored in the next play, but that's the kind of thing that, like, dude, that's a really basic mistake, and you just took points off the board in a game we're trying to come back and win.
Yeah, the fumble before the half was massive. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a game changer.
Just statistically here, I had been lamenting the Cardinals offense, passing offense, as you know, they're averaging between 5 and 6 yards per attempt every single game, and DeAndre Hopkins had opened up that offense a little bit more. It wasn't his best game, but 5 yards per attempt. They're back. So they were not getting the ball down the field. Kyler Murray, there was a lot of games yesterday where the quarterback was the leading rusher on the team. Obviously, you had Fields, but you had Josh Allen, you had Kyler Murray, you had Mahomes on Sunday Night Football. Kyler, the leading rusher in this one as well for the Cardinals. But, yeah, the Cardinals, they're interesting because they do have Geno threw the ball short for the majority of the game. You know, they create big plays when needed. I mean, one of their biggest play was just they're running out the clock. Noah Fant in the flat for 51 yards. It was a short passing attack. His average depth of target was minimal. But the Cardinals, you know, didn't tackle well. They, you know, didn't play in space well. I mean, the Seahawks offense has answers now. And their defense has players, which I did not expect this year. Tariq Woolen and Ryan Neal and all these guys every single week continue to play well. To me, the story of the season is both sides of the ball. The rookie class for the Seahawks, both starting tackles, Kenneth Walker, Tariq Woolen, it's one of the best rookie classes we've seen in years. But the emergence of the defense in Seattle, the emergence of Geno Smith, all of it is absolutely incredible. 6-3 Seahawks.
Yes. So let's cover this Tyler Lockett thing. Somebody was it DM'd you and me, I think. Somebody was basically messaging us with a video of plays where Tyler Lockett catches the ball and then goes down untouched before getting hit in the course of a game. I was like, what do you make of this? Essentially giving himself up on the play repeatedly. He did it in this game where he gave himself up before a 1st down in a reasonably important play early in the game. And Darrell Moose Johnson was the color commentator in the booth, former NFL fullback. So you can, you know, probably get an idea of the way he thinks about certain things just from that information, even if you know nothing else about Moose. And then, like, later in the game, Eno Benjamin, Cardinals running back, doesn't give himself up and really goes after a first down, gets a few yards through contact. And he's like, yeah, you see, like the difference between Tyler Lockett there giving himself up and Eno Benjamin going looking for that. Like, okay, but look, Eno Benjamin weighs 25 pounds more than Tyler Lockett despite being shorter than him. Like, that's a man built to go and get yardage in ugly situations. And he's a running back, by the way. Like, these are important details here. Tyler Lockett, though, is like 5'10", 11, and 180 pounds. Like, he can't play the game like he's Nuke Hopkins, you know? So, and then late in the game, Tyler Lockett catches a pass where he was being led into hell. Like, got led into contact, took a shot, held on with the ball, first down, big play. And I was like, okay, that play right there is why I don't care if he spends his entire time being late career Isaac Bruce and just catching the ball and hitting the turf before anybody hits him. Because Isaac Bruce was doing this for the last several years of his career, where he would just catch the ball, get as much ground as was there until contact was inevitable, and then would just drop like a sack of potatoes and hit the ground. You're like, I'm not taking that hit. And you're, all right, fair enough. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. Like, there are certain situations where I would really like those extra couple of yards because it's a first down. On the other hand, you're a really important receiver for this team, and I need you there. And I know that if I put you into a tight window, you're going to catch the ball and take a hit, and that's more important to me. So Tyler Lockett at 5'11 and 180 should absolutely be preserving himself when he can. I have no problem with it.
We've pushed back on the notion that the best ability is availability, right? Because it's generally attached to Frank Gore, right? Frank Gore, you know he's going to be out there.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get your 3.7 a pop for the last 8 years of his career. The best ability is availability. Well, not if you're playing at like replacement level, because we can replace you, right? We can find someone else to grab 3.7 per carry. I think if you're Tyler Lockett and you're a very good receiver, availability is important, right? Because you are good at most things, catching the ball, getting open, the other things you do, and you sacrifice an extra couple of yards here and there to be on the field. This is the argument of Baker Mayfield, Teddy Bridgewater last year. Remember the big debate we had? Teddy Bridgewater throws a pick six or fumble six or whatever it was and just lets the corner go, take it to the house. Baker Mayfield throws a pick against the Texans in a game that they're probably going to win. He throws his shoulder in there and ruins maybe his career, right? It hasn't been the same since that point. That stuff matters, right? So, yeah, I get it, man. I think I'm okay with preservation.
I would be.
The difference would be like Cam Newton in the Super Bowl doesn't jump on a fumble.
Yeah.
That's different, right?
Also, Cam Newton is a giant physical freak. Like the idea that he shouldn't
and it's the Super Bowl.
He doesn't need to be preserving himself the same way Tyler Lockett does, you know? And I would have a bigger problem with the Tyler Lockett thing if he didn't throw his head into plays like that one where he caught it in, right in front of a big hit. The big hit was coming from Zaven Collins, I think. So he's about to take a hit over the middle, head to head, like running, headlong crash against a guy that outweighs him by 50 pounds. What's Zaven Collins? He's like 250, right? It's like 75 pounds.
He's a 250-pound linebacker,
right.
Yeah.
So he's taking a hit from a linebacker who outweighs him by 75 pounds, and he's willing to stick his head in there and take that shot. That is why I don't care that he's willing to give himself up and not take a random shot that doesn't need to happen. Like, if he wasn't willing to take that hit, now we have a conversation, because now you're talking about a guy that simply does not want to take contact. And if you put the ball in anywhere that's going to create that, he's like, yeah, you know what, not today. Like, if he was alligator arming every tight window throw,
that's different,
because he's about to take a hit, now that's an issue, because you've got a really good receiver who's just not willing to take a hit. That's not what we're dealing with here. Tyler Lockett will take a hit when you put him in that
toughness.
position.
That's toughness, which is different from preservation.
Right, but he is out there saying, well, if I don't have to take a hit, I'm not going to take one. And frankly, I don't have a problem with that given his size. If he was 220 pounds, sure, but he isn't. So don't expect him to take those shots.
I'm just so impressed with Seattle, man. They're off to Germany to take on the Bucs next week in what looks like it should be a very good game with the first ever German NFL game. By the way, don't forget to check out the new PFF app. Go check it out. Download it right now. All your fantasy betting, all your great news, all of Sam's great writing. What are you writing this week? That's going to be up on the app. Doing your rookie review.
It'll be a mid-season-ish all-pro team.
Oh, yeah. The 52% of the way through the season all-pro team?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That'll all be on the app. Go check it out, PFF app. All right, Bucs 16, Rams 13. This is your game of the week with Romo and Nance. Brady and the Bucs make the comeback late, 65 yards in under a minute, no timeouts, in a game that saw very poor offense on both sides.
Yeah.
Bucs pull to 4-5. They're now technically first place in the NFC South. The Rams fall to 3-5 here.
Can you imagine how much it would suck to get on a plane to Germany if they lost that game?
Yeah.
That would be rough. This game was kind of depressing. It felt a lot like two storied, famous, heavyweight boxing champions that have reached the end, and are punch drunk, not the guys they used to be, don't have the cardio, and are just kind of staggering around the ring, slugging at each other with neither one of them capable of doing anything like what they were doing when they were in their prime. And it's like, wow. These two teams, they were the last two Super Bowl winners,
Yeah.
Just a couple of years ago, each one of these teams with the Lombardi Trophy and the confetti, and it was all great.
With many of the same players.
Yeah.
Not completely, but many.
And now it's like it seems scarcely believable that is true. These two teams in the playoffs last year. The Rams' offensive line is just a disaster. They can barely function with that. The Bucs randomly forgot that Cooper Kupp exists, despite, ironically, A, he's their primary and only threat, and B, of all the teams in the world that should be aware of what happens when you forget about Cooper Kupp, the Bucs should probably be first in that list, given what happened in the playoffs. But they drop coverage on Cooper Kupp. He scores or goes on a big play. You take that out of there, the Rams basically did nothing in the entire game on offense. And then Tampa Bay, it wasn't much better, but they were at least vaguely capable of moving the ball every now and again.
I know I do this a lot because you can't, take the play out, but it's just to give perspective of what you watched, right? If you do take out the Cooper Kupp play, which counted, which existed.
Yeah, but it's not like this was a play where the Rams really, did something special. It's like the Bucs forgot
just a busted
Cooper
coverage.
Kupp was there for a play.
But Stafford had 96 passing yards on all other dropbacks, the other 30 dropbacks. 96 passing yards, and then take off 27 for sacks.
Did they end up in positive or negative yardage for the fourth quarter, the Rams?
I think it was
because
still
at one
negative.
point they were negative until that final drive where they didn't go anywhere.
That's the weirdest thing. Last year, Stafford's had a knack for those fourth quarter comebacks. He's had a lot of opportunities in his career. That's a big part of it. He's not better at a percentage point or anything perspective, but he's got a knack for making those fourth quarter comebacks. He did it a lot last year. He did it in the playoffs last year. We saw all that. The Rams have been atrocious in the fourth quarter this year.
Yeah.
Just bad overall.
They were terrible. But this, I think you don't feel good about this game if you're either team. Okay, the Bucs stumbled their way over the line. They finally got the win. That's important for them, and is one of the reasons that I'm a little bit more optimistic about their future than the other sort of NFC powerhouses that are struggling, because Green Bay might as well pack it up already. If they haven't lost the division already mathematically, they're right on the cusp. And the Rams, I just don't see how you fix that offensive line during the course of the season. So I think they're screwed as well. The Bucs, at least, the division is right there. They're in first place because they win this game. They're going to have all year to figure this out, and therefore the potential is there for them to kind of get themselves together and ultimately still be a problem come playoff time for anybody in the NFC. But God, you wouldn't. It's hard to envisage it from watching this.
The Rams started their 8th different offensive line combination. We're 8 games into the season.
Yeah.
Bobby Evans absolutely torched by Raheem Nunez-Roches and Vita Vea. Those were the top pass rushers for the Bucs. Vita Vea getting to the quarterback. Stafford wasn't under a ton of pressure, but when he did, it became a sack most of the time. That was the issue there. On the other side, a lot of talk this week about the Bucs and establishing the run and running the ball better. And they doubled down on this strategy that you have to run the ball to set up play action. Now, I know at the end of the day, Tom Brady dropped back 60 times compared to just 20 runs. So the run-pass balance wasn't there. But the Bucs ran on their first 7, 8 offensive first downs. And at one point, they'd had 7 attempts, 23 yards, and 2 holding penalties, which don't show up in the stats, but, they're negative 20 yards, right? Part of the reason it does feel like when the Bucs actually get a hole and they pick up 5, there's a holding penalty. That's how that hole was opened up. Their run blocking grade as a team is in the 30s in this game.
The Bucs just seem – I don't understand why they can't just run a clean play.
They did on the final drive. They just did. But before that, everything else, yes.
And even then, literally we predicted that, not the final drive, the one before that. We predicted that sequence. It's like, all of a sudden Scotty Miller is the go-to guy. And I was like, we're 3 plays away from disaster. And then immediately they get to the end zone, Scotty Miller clang right off his face mask. You're like, come on. How hard is this? You did all the hard stuff. You dragged the team down there. You then beat the guy in the end zone. All you got to do is catch the ball that's literally about to hit you in the face. How hard is this? But somebody was tweeting me, and they're like, do the Bucs lead the league in drops? Because it feels like they have one every drive. Actually, they're not even close, but they just timed them for the worst possible play, which is the story of Tampa Bay's entire season. They're not even playing that badly collectively or individually. It's just that everybody times their bad play for the worst possible scenario. So there's a play in here where Brady escapes the pocket contra. Brady turns into Kyler Murray, right? Ducks out of a sack, suddenly runs forward into space, finds Mike Evans on 3rd and 5 in a tight window, converging DBs, and Evans just drops the ball. You're Mike Evans. You're the best receiver on this team. You're the consecutive 1,000-yard guy, record-setting. You're the guy he trusts, and he just made a play that is going to happen once this season for Tom Brady. That's one out of 100, 1 out of 1,000 for Brady, and you drop the ball, and now we got to punt it away. Why is everybody dialing up their bad play for 3rd and 5 or the worst possible time, the touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown? Just save it for a first down in the first quarter sometime. Get it out of the way and then make a good play when it actually matters.
That is what the offense has felt like for the last 4 or 5 weeks, really.
Yeah.
It's holding call negating first downs, or they had an illegal formation that negated a first down, drops, a missed throw. It's just there's always one person screwing up. That was the middle of the game the Chiefs had last night. Felt like that. There's always somebody screwing up on each play.
And it's the same reason everyone's like, oh, that offensive line's terrible. It's it isn't. It just dials up bad plays for key 3rd downs.
It could have been season saving for the Bucs though. At least coming away with the win. Ugly win. Ugly. You can see Brady was completely different. He was actually excited for the first time all season. Just an ugly game, but the final drive, man. Romo was making the point in the game. The Rams play soft, but it's not always that simple, right? It's not always throw 5-yard hitches the entire time, right? They mix up coverages extremely well. They did feel a little soft on that last drive, and Brady had much bigger passing windows. Because there was a point in the game, it's do the Bucs just not have a pass concept to beat anything that the Rams do? Is nobody ever going to be open? And if they do, they're going to drop it? Do they have answers at all? And in the final drive, it's you got a seam route. Cade Otton was the guy that came through, the rookie tight end. He had the game winner on the easy flat route, but he caught the ball up the seam.
I mean, honestly,
he's made
that
some
one
big plays
play,
for them.
that one play, probably is the outcome of this game. If they can't get that one big seam play to start that drive, they probably can't get it done. The Rams end up squeaking out with a, was it 13-7, 13-9? Or
it was 13-9. Yeah.
13, they end up with a 13-9 win, and it's it's same kind of story, but on the other side. But the Bucs basically could not function. They were slowly grinding this out and hoping to just get into field goal range to try and put 3 on the board 5 times. And that was how they were going to try and win this game until that last play. And then the Rams, literally, they had one basically busted coverage to Cooper Kupp, and outside of that, got nothing going. These were 2 miserable-looking teams. And, okay, at least the Rams I don't think can be fixed because their offensive line is horrendous, and I don't see how you can get 3 or 4 upgrades over the course of the season, particularly post-trade deadline. The Bucs, at least, again, the personnel is there. Like,
Yeah.
okay, fine. They keep getting banged up with receivers and blah, blah, blah. But, like, that's a capable-looking receiving group on paper. Tom Brady is still a good quarterback. The offensive line is fine, but everybody dials up their bad plays for really important times. If they can just stop doing that and they can, like, get some passing concepts that function, there's no reason this can't be a good team.
Julio Jones leaves injured again. Basically, anytime he makes a cut, it's kind of like holding your breath. He falls down on a 3rd and long trying to run a comeback route. I don't think he came back into the game.
You know the way
tough to rely on Julio at this point.
You know the way, like, Brett Favre, when he broke his thumb one time, just, like, encased it in resin and played on? It feels like you need to do that with Julio, but, like, head to toe. Like, I wrecked my ankle one time. One of the dumbest injuries of all time. Those kind of reaches where, arm up and knee up. You go up in the air and come back down.
Yeah.
When I came back down, my ankle just went, and I ruptured a bursa sac and did a bunch of other stuff to it. And I went and got, like, physio on it, and the guy was saying, well, this is like an 8-week injury or whatever it was. And I was like, well, I have a game in, like, 4 weeks, so that's the timetable, ill-advised though it may be.
Yeah, make it happen.
And a friend of mine is a kind of sports, he does physio stuff as well, so he came down to that game and taped my ankle. So it was pretty bad at that point still, but he taped it, like, rock solid, right? To the point where it no longer flexed. But the tape became like a spring. You know those, like, the kind of those blade things that Paralympic athletes run on? Where you replace your leg with, like, a carbon ceramic or carbon fiber or, like, spring, and you can sprint on those things. That was basically what the ankle tape was like. Like, my ankle would not flex in any way, shape, or form, but the tape became like a spring, and you just replaced your ligaments, essentially, with artificial ligaments, with tape. I think Julio Jones just needs to be every piece of his body that is like ligament, replace it with tape. Just tape him up, every joint, fingers, elbows, wrists, knees, ankles, tape them solid, and just send them out there.
Maybe that's
go get it done.
Maybe that's what they're saving for the playoffs.
Now, when you get hit, doesn't matter. It's all the tape's absorbing it all. Now all you got to deal with is muscle injuries, soft tissue. I don't know how you can fix that, but maybe pads.
He's had those too.
But every joint just gets taped solid.
Are you ready for Sunday Night Football?
Yeah.
Chiefs 20, Titans 17. What a crazy game. This was a record-setting game, Sam. Because Patrick Mahomes goes 43 for 68 for 446. So he threw for 446 on 6.6 yards per attempt. Whereas Malik Willis goes 5 for 16 for 80.
I'm kind of sad that the Titans didn't pull this off and win the game because they came into this game winning 5 of the last 6 against the Chiefs, 2-1 against Mahomes, with the one being the playoff game, unfortunately. But like if they'd won like six out of the last 7 against the Chiefs, including a 3-1 record against Mahomes, despite not having a starting quarterback in this game, that would have been nuts.
Yeah, this was impressive comeback by the Chiefs, man. Because look, not every game's going to be perfect and clean, but the Chiefs pull it off. That's huge for them. Game flow wise, Chiefs get up 9-0. There's a missed extra point. The missed extra point by Harrison Butker and later a missed field goal by Butker end up looming large here. But the Titans, part of it was game plan, but they hung tough, right? They're down 9-0 in Kansas City. I thought Chris did a great job saying, all right, you survived the early onslaught. You survived a couple rounds of haymakers, and it's only 9-0. And then they trudge back, Derrick Henry reeling off big runs. And before you know it, it's 14-9, and then it's 17-9 Titans. And their defense is just playing at that line of physicality. We're gonna get hands on receivers. We're gonna get hands on Travis Kelce. We're gonna have contact at the catch point, and if they call it, they call it. And the Titans did a really good job, man, of limiting this Chiefs offense in the middle of the game. And then the absolute turning point was Patrick Mahomes with his legs. And it was a 3rd and 17 that he picks up. He has a 14-yard scramble for a touchdown. I mean, those are the plays. The Titans chose to not spy him, to use the extra players in coverage, in part because they were taking away Kelce. But the Titans were relying on their defensive line to keep him contained. And it is so tough, right? You hear this on broadcast all the time. If there's 4 linemen, there's six gaps to cover, but there's only 4 linemen. So you need really athletic players to be able to keep Mahomes or anyone in the pocket. And Mahomes just took advantage, man. I mean, those last couple drives 13 plays, 93 yards in the fourth quarter, down 8, and then tying it up on the 2-point conversion, pretty much on the back of Mahomes' legs. That was spectacular finish here for the Chiefs.
Do you have an explanation for how Tennessee was able to do this? Because this, okay, they lost, so it doesn't really matter in the big picture, but this game would have made a lot more sense if they'd just gotten blown out, you know? And it would be like, okay, Tennessee was able to do a good job against the bad teams on their schedule this year, but then they go and play the Chiefs, and they're just not able to hang at that level, especially without their quarterback, right, with Malik Willis. But Malik Willis comes in and actually starts playing really well, generally. Okay, they still didn't ask him to do a ton.
Early on, he made some nice throws.
Yeah, and he had a bunch of nice plays. Again, he was kind of getting let down by receivers at times. You know, the Tommy Tremble dropping a P.J. Walker pass. It's like, look, you're dealing with a quarterback that isn't the best guy in the world. When he actually puts a dime into your hands, give him the service of catching it. Like, Malik Willis dropped a couple of really nice passes in early, and his receivers didn't come up with it. You're like, come on. Like, this guy's trying to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the game. The least you can do is do with what Mahomes receivers do when he makes some absurd play, runs to right field, sidesteps a guy, throws it back across his body, and you have to make a contested catch over the middle. Make the contested catch, And the Titans guys weren't getting that done. But they had a really good game plan, I think, on both sides of the ball, and really took it to the Chiefs in a way nobody else really has this year.
Yeah, the records that were set here were the biggest differential in pass attempts, I believe, 68-16, in completions, 43-5, and just everything was crazy.
Our friend Josh Dubow had a tweet that says the Titans didn't complete a pass to a wide receiver all game. The only team since 2000 that didn't have a completion to a wide receiver were the Patriots in that wind game against Buffalo, where nobody passed the ball.
Right.
The Broncos, when Kendall Hinton, their wide receiver, was the quarterback because they didn't have any quarterbacks. And then apparently the Texans managed it with David Carr at quarterback in a game against the Steelers back in 2002. So essentially this doesn't happen in the NFL.
No. And Malik Willis, it was his first pass, right?
Yeah.
Chigakwankwo on the 48-yard tight end screen.
Uh-huh.
So 48 of his 80 passing yards
came in that one play.
Came on the first play. And that didn't lead to points
right
on the first drive, right? So, yeah, a lot of nothing makes sense. There was a 56-yarder for Derrick Henry. That flipped the field. Henry found the end zone twice. They were running early. But, look, the Chiefs just stacked the box and said, all right, Malik Willis, make more of those throws. The back shoulder to Austin Hooper was awesome. The bomb to, was it Westbrook? No, Chris Conley. Through Chris Conley's hands. Those are plays.
Conley screwed him,
Titans
and then there was
make.
a deep pass to Westbrook Akine that could have been a catch. But
it was kind of a jump ball, but
that was that was like those Justin Jefferson plays earlier.
You need
right?
to,
where
yeah.
It's like it's not a bad play that you didn't come up with it, but you kind of want to come up with those,
Yep. And then the Chiefs, their running backs, 14 yards on 13 carries. One was a fullback dive on 3rd and 1 that got stuffed as well. The Chiefs also, was it overtime? They didn't go. They went for the win in overtime, and they still got stopped. Right, the Titans still locked down in the red zone. I mean, that's why you can't figure out the Titans. Right, it's because they're good in the red zone on both sides of the ball. They just on offense can't get to the red zone. Once they get there, they score. But they don't get there very often. Once they got there twice, they scored. They don't get there very often. Everything in between was terrible. The Titans had 0 net yards in the second half of that game.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat is suggesting that we change the PFF app to just give the opposite of what we pick for the game. That should be our money-making system. That's probably a good idea. This game was intriguing because it felt like a game where I wonder how much success can be predicated on figuring out how how the officials are calling a game early and adjusting to that. This game was one where the officials basically decided pretty early on that we're not going to call anything. Every now and again we'll be like, you know what, we haven't called anything in a while. We should probably throw a flag here. And they seem to just toss a flag randomly, be like, yeah, that felt like holding. But generally, the approach to this game was let him play. This is a prime time game. It's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's two AFC powerhouses. Just let them play football, you know? We don't want to be the story here. Let the players deal with this. And so you could basically beat up receivers, and nobody was going to throw a flag. You could generally hold. Nobody was going to throw a flag. You could get physical. And this was a game where, they made a lot of this on the broadcast. Going into this game, it was going to be a chippy game, The Chiefs were pissed off because they got physically dominated the last time they played the Titans. The Titans wanted to do it again. So this was going to be a chippy physical encounter. And the officials' response to this, apparently, was just to step back and say, have at it, gents. See you on the other side. But I think that affected Kansas City generally more than it affected Tennessee. And it felt a little bit like, remember that famous game where the Patriots DBs just decided to mug the Colts in the playoffs to the point where they had to reemphasize what illegal contact was in the offseason? It's like, hey, illegal contact, and we're a little bit unclear as to where the line is. Well, that's over it, Just for everybody's, that was over the line.
That's
and we're going to start that again, draw the line here. Can't do that. That's what this game was. Like, it wasn't quite as egregious as that, but it was in the same family, where they just went, just play on. Whatever contact you need. It's just hand fighting. Carry on. And this wasn't even like, I'm not saying this was all one-sided. Like, there was a play where Trent McDuffie was covering, was it Austin Hooper? And just mugged him. It's like, okay, look, Trent McDuffie covering Austin Hooper, the dude's that weight for like a mile. So you probably have to be a little bit physical. But, like, that was pass interference as well. I'm just saying that a big part of this game being the way it was, I think, was the officials calling it the way they called it.
So the official record per NFL research was that the completion differential was a record.
Is that a thing?
Yes. I mean, they found it. 43-5.
43-5.
Right. Breaking the record of it was the Patriots 59-0 win against the Titans in the snowstorm in mid-October, where Brady completed 29, but Brian Hoyer also completed 9. So the Patriots completed 38 in that game compared to the Titans 2. 38-2 was the old record. Man, this box score is pretty special. The Titans in that game went the snowstorm in 2009. The Titans, Vince Young plus Kerry Collins, combined to go 2 for 14 for -7 yards and 2 interceptions. That's impressive. That's pretty impressive. Anyway, that's why it felt like you never know when you're going to see history, Sam.
By the way, I know there were a lot of penalties in this game, but one, a lot of them were procedural things that aren't what I'm talking about, and two, there were a lot of plays in this game.
Yeah,
like,
but
the Titans ran, or the Chiefs ran 91 plays.
But even that, the point that you were making was not that the penalties aren't going to be called. It was the old Seahawks thing too.
Sorry.
It's like if we are physical on every play, call holding on every play.
Sorry, not when you factor in penalties. The Chiefs ran 101 plays.
Yeah.
So of course there's going to be penalties in the game, particularly when
there was a few illegal contacts in there. There was a few of them, right?
But a lot of these were like procedural penalties. My point being that the things like illegal contact and holding, when they did get called, felt like it's been a while since we've called what was an egregious bit of contact on pretty much every play. Let's throw one now. I think they let an awful lot go in this game relative to other games that you see every single week, including this week.
So even though it was ugly for a bit, the Chiefs did go through that stretch where it felt like somebody screwing up on every play. They had McCole Hardman had a 3rd and 17 drop that was open. Mahomes got it there. Mahomes played pretty well. I mean, he played well overall, even as a passer. I know he threw for 446 eventually, but he played better than that. I mean, that's because he dropped back so many times. He played pretty well. There's a fluke interception in there. Mahomes' legs took over. And bottom line, the Chiefs needed the win. 6-2. You got to keep pace with the Bills, keep pace with everybody in the AFC.
Well, not just keep pace because Buffalo dropped the game.
Yeah, I mean you're now tied for the best record in the AFC, right? 6-2, 6-2. So there you go.
Yeah, and the other thing, I mean, Mahomes played very well. It did feel a little bit like last year at times where the Chiefs were getting frustrated at not being able to get what they usually get going.
Chucked an arm punt up in there, yep.
Yeah, there was that one play where he just heaved it into double coverage and just decided, screw it, I'm taking a shot, and got reasonably lucky that didn't get picked off.
Yeah.
And that was, early in the fourth quarter. So not
third and long, too. It was kind of like a worthwhile risk, but you could tell. I mean, it was like they were taking shots.
Yeah, but you're like, backed up in your own territory.
All that said, the Mahomes' legs, they were fantastic. They had a lot of opportunities to put the ball into the end zone in overtime and late. I mean, they didn't do it. They had a few opportunities there, and the Titans really just held strong.
Yeah, Titans
just
defense.
So much credit for their defense.
Their defense did an incredible job, particularly when you consider, the personnel that they're missing.
They're banged up too.
Even in this game, they lost a couple of guys, important members of that defense, and they just keep showing up. They locked down the Chiefs receivers. Okay, I think they were aided by the fact that the officials were going to let the game go that way, but the flip side of that is they were also hurt by that because Jeffrey Simmons was getting held quite a lot. It's the same idea, right? So swings and roundabouts. But I think the Titans do well when the game is officiated like that. When you're let play, I think the Titans are at their best when they're allowed to be physical and make it a chippy game and, make things into an arm wrestle as opposed to a track meet.
Man, that's why the contrasting styles does make for a fun game. But Malik Willis, man, when the ball's in his hands to go win the game, it just he's scrambling around. The second to last play, I think they were trying to set up a screen. You saw the replay. None of the receivers were running routes, but Malik Willis looked like he was looking downfield. The screen never materialized, so he was running around for his life at the end. Ugly finish for the Titans, but they played hard. 6-2 Chiefs, 5-3 Tennessee Titans. We got football tonight, Saints and Ravens. Monday Night Football. Enjoy that. We previewed it on the preview show if you want more on that one. But that's it for us today. Did we hit every game?
Yep. Hopefully.
Another crisp 2 hours and 15 minutes with half the league on bye.
Smooth.
But it's always fun talking NFL with you guys on a Monday morning. We'll be back on Wednesday. I think we should review our bets on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Review, not these bets. Review our fan bets on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Come prepared. Between now and Wednesday, send some emails if there's things you want to bet on. If you want to say you're a Packers fan and you're like, that's it, we're going to run the table.
Yes.
Right?
Good
we're going to
example.
run. We're the Packers. We're going to run the. We don't believe in you anymore. We think.
Or the Rams, another good example.
The Rams.
Cannot
I'm
be
a Rams
fixed this
fan.
year.
They're going to be fixed.
Yeah.
The offensive line's going to turn it around.
Good
Whatever
example.
it is. Send us your best, and we'll review where we're at, and we'll take some new bets on Wednesday. And generally just have some fun.
Yeah, and email us in charity suggestions, places we can donate to, and the thing that we have to make Steve do for a sport that he's never played before.
I like the kick and field goals.
We
should do some field goals.
I just think, since I like the idea of also making this a you thing, It's your turn to be embarrassed.
I mean, I think you could say that when I pitched to you, even though it was your embarrassment, I took the brunt of it. Just saying. Residual effect. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you on Wednesday. Go download the PFF app. Do it right now. And hit thumbs up on your way out. That's it. That's the only thing you need to do. PFF app, thumbs up.
There's your homework.
And see you Wednesday.